Hello! I can hear me. Here's hoping you can hear me. Mike will let me know that shortly. But hello, assuming you can hear me, to each and every one of you in the chat. Wow, it is busy today. So get your questions in there while I wait for my thumbs up. My thumbs up's arrived, so good grief, it's working first time. Put in the chat if you are with me live. Have you already bought all of the version 2 applications? Let me know. Right, I've got one more thing to do to make sure that you can see what I am seeing. So push button, looking good. So hello and welcome officially. Yes, you're all saying you can hear me. That's fantastic. So hello and welcome to each and every one of you. Excitement. Affinity Apps version 2, all of them. So let's have a quick look. Right, if you don't know me, I'm Elaine Giles, long-time trainer, podcast host, and inveterate geek in the middle of a motorcycle track by the sounds of it. Do apologise for that. We've got a neighbour who likes to ride a bike. Bad words are usually said. Anyway, my YouTube channel is where you will find tips, tricks and full training sessions. We are broadcasting in 1080p. Make sure that you are receiving in 1080p. Cog in the lower right-hand corner. While you're down there, there is a like button, and if you want to make sure that you don't miss anything in the future, there is a subscribe button as well. It may be red, it may be white, or it may be black. YouTube have had a rebrand. Okay, if you are going to ask questions, put a Q at the beginning if you can remember. That way we will gather them all together and we will answer them at the relevant point. We do have a full dedicated Q&A at the end, which doubtless will degenerate into just a chat, which is great because it's been a while since we've had a chat. So, Affinity Publisher 2. Everything was released on the 9th of November. It was version 2 of everything. Literally everything. And yes, that does include Affinity Publisher for iPad. I know, at long last. Today we're looking at the desktop, but if you have questions about the iPad app, do put that in. So, what apps are we talking about? We are talking about Affinity Publisher, Affinity Designer and Affinity Photo. And all of them for macOS, Windows and iPad OS. So everything is now complete. The entire family is complete. Right, prices. The standard pricing for these is $59.99 each for Mac and Windows and $17.99 for iOS, for iPad OS. Those are the standard prices if you were to buy the individual apps separately, which I've done the maths for you, comes to a grand total of £413.91. But there is a special launch offer of 40% off. Again, these prices are if you were buying the individual apps separately, and that would be £245.91. The good news is there is no subscription. But there is a better way to buy, and that is a new invention called the Universal License. What that gives you is a license for every app on every platform. At the moment, with the 40% discount, that price is $89.99 if you are in the UK, $99.99 in America, and if your currency is the euro, $119.99. It makes it a lot cheaper. So I would say, why would you not go for that? Because it is literally only fractionally more than 2 of the apps on one iPad app. So that is the most cost-effective way to do it. If you were to wait, and I don't know how long this 40% sale will be there for, if you were to wait, the full price of the Universal License is $144.99 in the UK, $169.99 in the US, and $199.99 in Europe. Now, I know that those prices aren't exactly 40% difference. I don't know where the maths is going either, but trust me, they're correct. Right, you will need an Affinity account. This is totally free. You can have an Affinity account even if you're just using the trial products. You don't have to purchase to have an Affinity account, but you will need an Affinity account to activate these apps. In terms of what you'll need OS-wise, you'll need at least Catalina on Mac, at least Windows 10 and some hairy scary build of Windows 10. I don't really do Windows, but whatever that is. And it also works on Windows 11. And on iPad OS 15. And that's probably because when you look at the hardware requirements, basically any Mac going back a while will do. Windows, again, I don't do all of that. But on the iPad, I'm quite impressed because there was talk before this was actually released that you'd need an M1 or an M2 iPad. But when you look at that, it goes all the way back with an iPad Pro, all models, to 2015, which is very impressive. I'm not saying it would run amazingly on technology that's 7 years old, but it'll run. So it isn't a case of you've got to go out and spend quite a lot of money. Now, bizarrely, and Mike's a trainer as well, and he said, you're really starting with that? And I said, yes. Let's get the misery out of the way first, and then it's all plain sailing from there. What is still missing? And I believe we've had a question about this already. So obviously these slides were pre-prepared. I've anticipated you. If your number one request was output to EPUB, you can leave now if you like, because it's not there. There is still no output to EPUB. I don't know why either, but there isn't. There are hacks that you can put in place. There are workflows that you can use to work around that limitation. But I thought that would be there too, but it's not. Right, something else that still isn't there, cross-references. Just not there. I have a dirty hack for that, but that's through 7 years of using the thing. Right, there is still no support for variable fonts, which, if you're wondering about a variable font, it's where all the different versions of the font are rolled into it, and just not supported. Neither are coloured fonts. Something I have seen people really bemoaning the lack of is grep styles. Again, if you're wondering what a grep style is, it's a way to apply a character style to some text inside a paragraph, but base its application on a grep pattern. If this means nothing to you, don't worry about it. It's conditional styling. So if in the paragraph I have the word Elaine, I would like it to be red and bold. Conditional styling, not there. So again, if that's what you were waiting for, sorry, it's just not there. But now we've got past what's not there, let's have a look at what is there and how we get the whole thing up and running. I've had several questions about installing it, but also telling me that you've bought it, but you've not actually installed it yet or tried it. So I went direct and I got the versions from Affinity. But you could also do that through various app stores. The apps are free. As you can see there, it says get, but it also says there's an in-app purchase. Using the get button, meaning it's free, gives you a free 30-day trial, after which you need a single in-app purchase. It's not a subscription. It is a single in-app purchase. At the moment, you can see from the text there is still 40% off that as well. It does say no sign-up required. But at some point, if you do go via the App Store, you are going to need to link your App Store account with your Affinity ID to make all of this magic work. You can go direct for the desktop apps, but obviously for iOS, you are going to need to go through the App Store. If you go direct, you may see quite a few of these kind of messages, particularly if you are on Mac. I went direct. I got quite a few warnings, but that's Apple for you. They're trying to save you from yourself. Once you get past that, you need to activate your license. Again, this is not a subscription, but it does need activating. So you need an email address and you need your password for your Affinity ID. This is nothing to do with your Apple ID if you are on Mac. It's your Affinity account. Once you've got that information in there, you need to hit the activate button. And in seconds, it activated. Now, I make the point it was in seconds because this was literally two minutes after it was released. So the servers could have melted, but it was absolutely fine. Now, there's another step at this point. So you can choose at this point, after your license has been activated, you can choose whether this instance on this machine is linked to your account, your Affinity account. Now, why would you do that, and why might you not want to do that? Well, you may want to do it because any assets you have purchased via Affinity will be listed inside your app. So instead of having to log into Affinity and download assets and manually install them, they are all there just listed for you. Why may you not want to? Well, if you're concerned about having too many activations, we've all been down that route, you may think, no, I don't want to do that. I want to take it away from it. It makes no difference because of the number of activations that you can actually have, which is as many as you like on a personal license as long as there's only you using it. So I said, yes, link the app to my account, and that means I've got all of the assets available to download. Once you get past that bit, you will need to accept the agreement. And then is the number one question, which it found my version 1 applications and it said, thank you for upgrading. Would you like your custom content to be imported from version 1? And what it's talking about particularly was the assets. Now you can transfer your assets manually, but it's way quicker to just say yes. Just transfer them for me. That would be awesome. And that was what I opted to do, and it did transfer them. With the exception of my templates, which it didn't, which surprised me. But it did take all of my assets in, and it's very simple to link them up to your templates if you do need to do that. So, do we have any burning questions that we can't possibly carry on with at the moment?
What is the cut-off date for the 40% deal?
Right, do you want to repeat that so people can hear you now your mic's on?
What is the cut-off date for the 40% off deal?
I have no idea. They have not said. Logic would say it would be after the 30-day trial. And they usually are incredibly generous. So this could be on for quite a while, or it could disappear tomorrow. I have no idea. I have no inside information on that whatsoever, I'm afraid. At the moment, you could take the 30-day trial. You don't have to take the entire 30 days. If you find that, yes, that's it, I've tried it, 2 days in, I'm going to use it, then you can just buy it. Other than that, it is a bit of Russian roulette, isn't it? Whether you leave it too long. I think they would warn you. But I can't guarantee that. Do we have anything else that we can't possibly carry on without?
Tom says, I think one of the advantages of Affinity apps is you and the user community. Adobe who?
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. I was actually talking to a very good friend of mine who works for Adobe. and it was funny talking to him about it. They're very laid back about it, but thank you very much. Right, okay, so new features. Let's go in and have a look at them. Why are things not moving the way they should be? There's always something, isn't there? Right. That didn't behave itself. I'll do that instead. There we go. Right. Publisher. Right, I have got some questions later on that people have sent in. I'll just mention at the moment that as soon as I attempt to run this, you can see I have both the original version 1, the last version of it, and version 2 installed. They are quite happy to run side by side. There is no issue with that whatsoever. It doesn't overwrite anything. The license you have for version 1 is still good. I mention that because there are apps where they're not. So my DevonThink 2 license self-destructed when I got DevonThink 3 and I wasn't pleased. With this, your original license is absolutely fine. You can switch backwards and forwards between them. You cannot open version 2 files in version 1, but you can open version 1 files in version 2, as I think most people would pretty much expect. So I will go into there. Right, let's bring that up. So as you can see, I've got my little panel here, so it's already there, but we're going to be working with that shortly. So I'll just put that off the screen and I will close this down and rerun it. And that way you will see what happens when you go into it from cold. And it's having a think about it. It's got the splash screen on one of my other monitors. Still having a think about it. Don't you dare not run. Just don't you dare even think about it. Oh, that's not good. Just for full disclosure here, it quit unexpectedly. It didn't. You saw me close it, but never mind. Right, it's okay. So the first thing we're going to see that's very different is the new file dialog. This has been completely redesigned. My first thought with that was I can see why they've done it to give you a big preview, but the rest of it's a pain. I found some presets that I used frequently missing. The good news is in this dialog box that if something is missing, you can create your own preset. Now that is different from a template. A preset is a set of options in here. A template has content in it. So a preset does not have content in it. It's just a starting point. But you can create your own. You have the same groups that you used to have available, but now they're in a scrolling list. So a lot of the time I'm working with web. So that takes me to the web bit here. You can see that you've got devices further down. So it's a full scrollable list. One thing that may save you time in here is if you use the same things all the time, like I use A4 quite a lot. It's just twanged again. Come on, let's get that out of the way. There is this isn't working too well, as you can see. Oh, good grief. Right, what I'm trying to do is hit this heart button here. As you can see, I've already done that up there. But what's happening is, oh, there we go. It's allowing me this time. So you put your heart next to each one of these. And then at the top, instead of choosing a group, you just hit the heart icon and it filters it for your favourites. So that is very useful if you're working with a handful of options and you really don't need to see all of the others. If you then do need to see all of the others, just toggle the favourites off and you can see the lot. Another way to work is by going into the search and putting a search in for what you're looking for. So I've got two different A4s there. I've got print and press ready and I can search for them. These settings over on this side are exactly the same as we had before. They're just in a different layout, an entirely different layout. So the one thing I could not make head nor tail of was looking through these. I consider the layout to include whether it's portrait or landscape, and you can see there is no option for that. So I then headed through all of these and thought it's not in there either. That's not good. It is there. It's up here. I don't know why either, but it is, and that will flip it round for you up here. So those options are exactly the same. If I wanted to create this, but I wanted a different colour space, I go into colour and I'll choose RGB. And then I can create that, and that would be, what are we at the moment? Let's have a portrait. I've just changed that, so let's change that and create. And I am now in there. So that is mainly the look of it. It's cosmetic. It's cosmetic change. But if you do configure that to your satisfaction, it can actually make working faster. While we're looking at this, we have the account at the top. So there's my account. There's my deactivation option. And these are the add-ons that are either free add-ons or whatever. Okay. And this is why I left it attached. So I can browse the store and I can download these assets that I've already got. We've seen the new option here. Open will open, it will show us an open file dialog box, which I'm not interested in at the moment. Then we have recent files. Templates is probably going to be one of the ones that you use quite a lot. Now, despite the fact that you saw the dialog box and it said, yes, bring everything through, none of my templates came through. It is simple enough to do this. It is this button at the bottom. It says add a template folder. So a template folder can live anywhere on your system. Pro tip, put it in the cloud. So if I do my add-on here and I go to Dropbox, my Dropbox is very simply organised with a para system, which is projects, areas, resources and archives, supplemented by an apps folder I can't get rid of because it's Dropbox, public shares that I have that I choose to put into root, and my application support folder, which is a folder that I have created. In there, I have my Affinity Designer, Photo and Publisher folders. This one at the top that says Affinity Publisher is my Affinity Publisher folder within iCloud. I don't use iCloud. it syncs when it feels like it, which isn't often in my case. But if I were to go on it, you can see what I've actually done is I've created 2 shortcuts, one to my Affinity Publisher folder on Dropbox and one on Google Drive. So I have belt and braces as a backup. So all I need to do, if it defaults to that, is go into there, and here is my Affinity Publisher files. Within there, I have a templates folder. And within there, each of these folders is a folder with templates in it. So these are ones I've created. There's my MacBytes one. That's my bingo card one. So I'm definitely going to need access to that. So what I would do is I would go in there and say choose. That would load it into here. And then it loads in the individual templates. And because I've got 3 of them, I'm going to do that 3 times. So back to my templates. It's having another think about it. Right, let's go to MacBytes and choose that. That will load that in. And finally, whatever is in the last one. So templates, my photo books, we did that in the photo books demo. So now I've got all of my templates in there. So if I want to make a new MacBytes bingo card, go into it, double click that, and I'm done. You don't need to add these in here, and unless you want to. If you've got templates in a folder and you don't particularly want them in the interface, they will still work. You'll just have to go and manually find them. The last thing we have in here is the samples, and these are the samples provided by Affinity. And you can see they're not downloaded yet, but you can download them if you want to download them and then kind of reverse engineer them. See how they made this look and feel, and what templates, what styles are in it and things like that. So that is the new file dialog box. Right, so I had a new blank file in here. So what I'm going to do is get my stuff in here. Next thing we're looking at is the interface. It's got bigger. Now I'm broadcasting at 1080p. Normally my Mac has a bigger screen resolution than this. So it does look very big at the moment, but it still looks a little bit bigger. It's easier on the old eyes to work with. The tools down the left-hand side, for a start, they're coloured icons now. They were very monochromatic before, and they're a little bit chunkier. The whole thing just looks a little bit chunkier. The biggest interface change is over in the Layers panel, where the layers now have individual icons to represent what they actually are. So if I were to put a text frame on here, and just put some text in, you can see over here it is showing me that it is a frame text, because previously what it used to do, let's get a shape, let's go and get a shape there. What it used to do was put in an ellipse, rectangle, or whatever it was next to it. But of course, you can change that, and then it was more difficult to see what exactly it was. But that is indicating it's a shape, this is indicating it's text, and so forth. So big changes in the layers. The other big changes, and at first I wasn't keen, you tell me if you are. At the bottom, these look really chunky. They used to look quite elegant, and now they're very chunky. It's very clear what they are, it's just a little bit bigger. So do you like those changes or not? Let me know in the chat. The first thing I did when I went in was like, okay, I haven't got all of my panels showing, so let's have a look at the panels, said I. Which were, and I have got this like a mantra, we go to View Studio. Not anymore, we don't. There is no View Studio. Everything panel related and studio related has moved to the Windows menu. In fact, although you do have Windows Studio, that only has your presets and managing presets and all of this. That's all that has, because your actual panels are in here. All of these are the panels that used to be in View Studio. It means there's one less menu to navigate. You don't have to go to View Studio or Windows Studio and then find the panel. They are just there under Window. Again, do you like that or not? I'm so used to View Studio. It's 7 years I've been doing that. So I'll have to remember that it's on Window now. I find it far easier to work with this, to have presets. So in my studio, I would have presets. It didn't bring any of those across either. but you can add a preset and then manage those presets. And what you're doing is you're setting up the perfect view and then you're saving it. So I would have a view for data merge, I would have another view for proofreading, so probably about 3 or 4 different views, and then switch between them really quickly. Right, so those are the interface changes, or the actual big interface changes. Right, the number one request that actually got met was the notes feature. So I'm going to get rid of this and that, and we're going to have a look at the notes. Now, when I say notes, if you're using other applications, the notes feature in other applications like Photoshop is a notes feature. You can select items and you can put a note on it to yourself. This isn't that. When Affinity refers to notes, the notes feature, it's talking about footnotes, endnotes, and a little extra called Sidenotes. So let's have a look at that. To do that, I am going to need to go in and put a text frame. Not that text frame. No, definitely not that text frame. Come on, let's get rid of that. You've disappeared. I need this text frame. Right, a text frame I'm putting text in as opposed to an artistic text frame. Right, for what I'm about to do to work for you, you're going to need to make one change. But what I'm doing is going up to text and I'm inserting filler text. And I'm going to work with this. While I can demonstrate the features, I have not had the luxury of 3 weeks to put data together. So I've got some text in here. Normally, when you put filler text in, you can't interact with it. But there is a trick. If you go into your preferences, let's bring the preferences down. There is one of these preferences, where is it, that lets you interact with the text. So insert filler text as text. And you may have seen that and thought, well, as opposed to what? A dinosaur. But insert filler text is not editable. Insert filler text as text makes it editable. So if you want to practice what I'm doing now, you will need to put a tick in that box. So we now have some text. It's not that pretty, but it'll do. So we can see what's going on, I will click there and I want to put in a footnote. So you need to bring up your notes panel. I've just explained that everything is available from window now, so it is down in here. It is one of these. Where are you? Text. Are you under text? Where have you disappeared to? It's there because it's open. So I know it's there. There we go. That will bring up this. Right. There's quite a lot going on in here. You have footnotes, you have side notes, and you have endnotes. So these 3 tabs, you actually only open the one panel, which is notes, but the notes panel relates to footnotes, side notes, and endnotes. Before you add one, make sure you've got the right one selected from these 3 at the top. And then what is below that then depends on which one of those subtabs you have clicked. So this one is a document-wide footnote. If we click on endnotes, that's also document-wide side notes. There's the endnotes. Okay, so let's work on the footnote first. Right, all I need to do, I don't even need to toggle these open to actually put a footnote in. I can just click the new note option at the top. Now, it doesn't say footnote or side note or endnote. It's dependent on what you have selected here. So push that. It puts a 1 in there. So that's the first thing it does, because this is the first one we've got. The second thing it does is whip you down here to the bottom. And that is where you would put the text of it. So this is my first footnote. Oh, so impressive, isn't it? It's as simple as that. If that is all you want to do, you just carry on doing that. So at another point in your document, so we'll say there, back to the notes panel, click again, you get number 2. Down here, this, guess what? This is my second footnote. Simple! But obviously it can get more complicated than that because you're going to want to do different things with it. So we'll now have a look at the rest of it. So we have 2 footnotes in here at the moment. Right. I've set it to document wide as opposed to custom. So that means if this had 20 pages, you just carry on putting your footnotes in and everything updates accordingly. Right, the numbering options are the first set of options. Now, it's best practice for footnotes to have whatever format you prefer for footnotes. But then for endnotes and side notes, it may be wise to choose something different. Because what you don't want on your last page is two sets of notes, because footnotes appear at the foot of the current page, endnotes appear at the end of your document. And side notes, I think the clue's in the name, they appear at the side. It would possibly be a good idea to have different numbering formats, and you have a range of numbering formats available. What I always do is have 1, 2, 3, etc. for my footnotes, and then the Roman numerals for my endnotes. That's just my standard. Haven't had the luxury of side notes before, might use A, B and C for that. We'll see. Actually, I don't know how many times I will be using a side note, but this is what you can do with it. So if you did want to change that, it automatically changes for you. So let's go in for the A, B and C, and you can see everything is getting updated automatically. But as I say, I prefer a 1. You can manually choose where that renumbering starts, so you could do that. And then you've got this option that I think should be different, which is restart every and it's set to frame. Right, what on earth is that on about? Well, I'm going to insert a couple more pages. So let's do 2 more pages. So I've got a 2 and a 3. And in here, I will put some more frames. So we'll have that one on the second page and that one on the third. And then what I will do is go back into this page, and down here I have my eyeball showing me that there's extra text, and I can click on there, which selects it, and I can feed it through from page 1 to page 2, and I can, there's no more text, but I can click this and I can link it up with that. And then I could put more text in if I wanted. And we know that this text, making sure that I don't select any of my, I'm just looking for text. I'm not selecting any of my footnotes or endnotes or anything. And go in here and paste some text in. Right. If I were to then add some footnotes in here, so again, I'm not concerned about the text, but we will add one there so I can see my footnote at the bottom. Go in and click new, and it's reset it to 1. That's just an option. So this is actually my third. This is my third footnote. Right, what's happening is this option, restart every frame, is making it that the frame on the first page will start at 1, and the frame on the second page will start at 1, and etc. Don't want that. Want them to carry on. So we have a whole range of options in here. We have reset it every page. Now you may think page and frame are the same, but they're not. You can have multiple frames on a single page. Per story. So if you wanted, if you were putting together a magazine and you had a series of stories and you wanted the footnotes on the stories to be per story, you would choose story. You've got sections, you've got documents, and you've got books. So would probably make sense in here. I don't want it per page, so probably per document. Straight away, that has changed the footnote here to a 3, and it's changed the footnote there to a 3. Right, that's the numbering options. You can also force it to start renumbering by just putting a tick in the box if you wanted it to. Now, formatting is not complicated. Maybe Mike can find the link to my styles session, which had a big blue poster. Nothing has fundamentally changed in styles to render that video out of date. So if you are seeking to understand the style aspect of this, you may want to watch that. But what is happening in here, in the formatting? In the main text, you want to display the number as just a number. If I click the drop down, you have options. You could put a tab before it. You could put an N space or an M space. You could actually put the entire note if you wanted. So this is allowing you to determine what the number text looks like. And then we have a number style, and it says no style. It is smaller, but it says no style. But it is at the moment superscript. You can take that away and it then makes it full size. It looks ridiculous. You'd have to put that in, if you wanted it that size, you would have to put it in like brackets of some description, so people didn't just think it was a number randomly placed in the text. But making it superscript means it scoots it up, makes it a bit smaller, and people automatically understand what that is. Now, the style aspect that it's talking about is if you would like it to have a character style. So these styles are all character styles. That's why they have an A next to them. You can make a new one, or you can use one of these. So emphasis strong or strong emphasis. So if we do that, it did. We've now got it bold and italic. If we go back in there and just choose strong, it will just be bold. And if you choose emphasis, it will just be italic. But if you wanted that to look wholly different, then you can create a new style for that, and it would be different. So all of that, which is that bit there, is we're talking about the number within the main body of the text. Right, the next part that we're talking about, I'm just going to click over there and make sure that that is all right. It is. So the next thing we're going to talk about is not what this looks like, this little 3. We're now talking about what this area looks like. How all of that is formatted. And what that looks like depends on what you have in there. So at the moment, it's very similar to the main text. It's just a number. But if you wanted to change that, you could do that in there. So you can put M spaces, N spaces, or tabs, whatever you want in there. You could also have a number style. So we've got it as emphasis in there. And to match it, we could do that in the body of the note as well. Again, you can have that superscript if you want, and not if you don't want. And you can choose a style for it. Now, body is probably a little bit big. To be honest, normally when you do that, you have it a little bit smaller. So usefully, you have this option to make a new style. So if I click that, style name, well, let's put footnote. And I want it based on the body style, or based on the base style. Depends what you want to do, but I'll make it on the body style, and that way at least I know what the font will be. But in the font here, I would like it to be smaller. So it's the text here that I'm changing. So should we see what 10 points looks like? And OK. And it makes it smaller there. Now it does need, the line above it needs more space, but it does make it smaller, which is probably what you want. Okay, so let's go into the next one. So now we're looking at positioning. So this is the note position. Where do you want the notes to appear? And I've got them at the bottom of the column, but I could have them below the text. What that would do is actually move it up fractionally. So what's the difference? It's inside the text frame now. Before it was outside the text frame. We could have it at the bottom of the frame, so that's really pushed it up right to the bottom of the frame. Or you could choose to have it below the frame. So the blue line at the top that extends this black one is the bottom of the frame. This is dangerous because you could well scoot off the end of the page if you've got lots and lots of footnotes. So think about that. The rest of this, the minimum gap before it, so that one's not looking too bad. But when I had it below the text, it was really close. So what I can do with that is put a gap in it. So I'm manually forcing a gap before it. The gap between is talking about, let's go back to page 1 here and zoom into that. The gap between is the gap between the footnotes. So we can space them out, make it a little bit easier to read. And there's a couple of other notes, a couple of other things in there that you can actually do to position it, but that looks all right so far. Then you've got rules, and the rule it's talking about is this black line. And at the moment it's before the first note, but you could have it on continued notes. You can determine what that actually looks like. So on the stroke style at the moment, it looks like it's black. You could change that if you wanted to indicate it. And you can change the width of it. So I said I would probably have that a little bit more. And you can have it offset if you need to. And that is your footnotes. Right. Let's have a look at endnotes. So I'm on page 1 at the moment. I am going to just randomly go to a place and switch to endnotes in here. I don't have to, again, think about any of the formatting or anything. Simply choosing this endnotes and pushing that new will give me an endnote. But whoa, something happened there. It inserted an extra page for me. Endnotes appear at the end of your work. So we have our 1, 2 and 3 pages, but now we've got page 4 and our endnotes are there. So this one, this is... No, I've missed an entire word out. Right, this is my first endnote, and that has put that right at the end. All of the options are the same. So if we go into the numbering, I said I would probably have that set to Roman numerals. That didn't do a thing, did it? I wonder why not. Let's go back and see if it has. Oh, it's updated there. That's okay. Let's have another look at this. Oh, it's just taken its sweet time. There we go. It has actually done it. All of the other things are the same. So when I talked about the styles and changing the font, all of that is the same. You could choose to format it with the footnote style, or you could create a derivative of that and make it a special endnote style. And that is it for the endnotes. Right. Next thing, side note. This is really useful for me. This was something that I didn't know that I wanted, but now it's there. I'm quite happy it's there. Right, when I'm writing manuals, I tend to leave a big gap at the side. Either for people to write notes in, or to put like pull quotes in with, warning or dirty hack, super tip, whatever. I would leave a gap and it would enable me to put content in it and that content have more visual priority. Right, but now I can put side notes in. So I am just going there. At the end of that, we'll move in, but not too much because we need to see what happens. Click on side note and then click new at the top. I know that's not great, but bear with me. Right, this is my first side note. Obviously I can't see it, nor can I move it because it's locked. But we do have information up here. We've got numbering information, so I said I would probably have these as an A, B and a C. But it's the position that I'm interested in. And what it's done is it said the note's position needs to be on the closest side. Well, that's fine, but I can't read it, so it can't stay there. I can choose to the left of the frame, the right of the frame, away from the spine, towards the spine, or an alternative side. So I would want that on the right-hand side of that, in this gap that I have created for it. There's my little A, and there is my little A on there. Right, so why is it a side note rather than just me putting some text in? Well, if it was me putting some text in, when this paragraph moves, that would not necessarily move unless I understand pinning, which I do, but a lot of people don't. What's pinning? So this is like automatic pinning. So I am going to go up here and just get another copy of that, and I'm going to put that in, and look what happens. The side note moves with it. Just like the footnotes would move from page 1 to page 2, if you put more text in, the side notes move up and down based on where they're anchored in the text. So that is footnotes, endnotes, and side notes. Do we have any questions on that are burning questions?
I don't think so. No, we had a question that Rene couldn't find his notes panel, but then it turned out it was on monitor number 3.
You're blessed with too many toys, Rene. That's what happens to me. I'm all over the place. And if it opens up and it's behind something else, then I'm never finding it. So I feel your pain. Okay, I did have a question about this, which is, if I have a Word file I know we all spit on Word, but if I had a Word file and it already had my footnotes and endnotes in it, Word doesn't support Sidenotes, what would happen when I imported it? Oh, we need answers to questions like that, don't we? So let's get a new file. We will go for A4 again. Right, I will put on here somewhere to import my Word file. I keep doing that, don't I? Oh, I'm determined that it's that one and it's not. It's that one. They should change the icon because clearly I can't cope. Right, this is a placeholder that I'm going to place the Word file into. But what does the Word file look like already? And so I'm going to open this file in Word. It'll doubtless pick a monitor of its choice and probably not the one that we want it on. I was quite right. It's on the other one. Right, I will drag that on. It did open it. There it is. There it is in Word. So we've got a 3-page document, chairman's statement of a football club. We have 3 footnotes on page 1. We have 4 footnotes on... No, we don't. We have 3 on page 2. Do you know when I opened this before we had 4? Never mind. So we've got 6 footnotes, and in there we have the 7th footnote and an endnote. No, I don't know why the endnotes aren't below the footnotes, but I guess it's because endnotes in Word appear immediately after the last paragraph. This is taking me back to my law school days when I had to put all of my endnotes, and we call them footnotes, but they were endnotes, at the end of a document. And as soon as I'd finished my last paragraph, all of my references came in. In this one, though, you can see that this is a footnote, that is an endnote. So that's what it looks like. But now I need to put this in Affinity Publisher. So let's get rid of that. So process for that. I will open that so we can get there. I need to go to File. No, don't do that. File and Place. And I need that to go to the... Not in Photo Books. There we go. There's my document there. So I will open it. I get the chance to place it. It's jumping all over the place. That's not me moving. That's it. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, naughty, naughty, naughty. Right, it didn't place it in there. It just went crazy with itself. But, you know, this has only been out a day or so, a couple of days. Right, there is my first text frame. That's where I saw 4 of them. It brings it in, and I've got more space in here. So instead of 3 footnotes, it brought in 4. But they are there. They are now in here. Does it understand them? Semi it does. We've got the line, we've got the numbers, but it didn't automatically populate the pages. So what I'm going to do in here, I've got 2 pages, but I have down here a red indicator to indicate it's overflowing. I can manually do this, or I can just hold the Shift key down. And if I hold the Shift key and click once, it will generate as many pages as it needs. And it does all kinds of weird stuff, doesn't it? It's not good. Right, this is page 1. We have 1 to 4 on page 1. Let's have a look what we've got on page 2. We've got 1 to 3. Well, that's not right for a start, is it? We should have 5, 6 and 7. But that, if you remember, was all to do within here. So in the footnotes, where we have restart every frame, if we change that to story, these automatically update. And no, they weren't created in here, they were created in Word. But this panel interacts with these footnotes and endnotes as if they were created in Affinity Publisher. So hopefully that will save some of you a heck of a lot of time. In the meanwhile, we have fun and games with the endnotes. So across here we have the endnotes, and it's put it in a frame, and you can see it's there. Right. How did I do it? Because I had lots of fun and games with this. But this is the endnotes, and it sits on a page of its own. So it does a different thing to Word. And I'm having to move this up and actually position it so it's in the right place on that page. If you do this and then you need to import something else, let me have a look how I could do that quickly with some text. Let's take I don't want to replicate any footnotes or endnotes or anything. I just want some text with no footnotes or endnotes. That paragraph will do. Right, so if I take some text and I need to add to this, so I'm putting it in before the auditor's report. So I paste this in and I paste it a couple of times. You'll see the endnotes stay exactly where they are. The footnotes up to 7 stay where they are, but did that paste in? You did. Jolly good. Right. But these endnotes at the end, what do I do now? Because I've got this text overflowing here. So one of two things will happen. Either I'll be able to shift-click that and the endnotes will magically move, or they won't. So let's try it. Holding the shift key down and clicking there. And what we have now is awkward. We've got our page 2 as was. I pasted it in that many times. The auditor's report has disappeared from this frame. It has appeared in here. There's the auditor's report. So I pasted and pasted and pasted. That would be fine, apart from the fact that my endnotes are now in the middle of my document. So if you need to do what I've just done, which is edit it afterwards, then fine, but you're going to have some manual work to do. It's not that tricky. All you would need to do is to click on the page with the endnotes on it and move that page to the end. We now have page 2 leading on to page 3, little bit on page 4, and the endnotes are on page 5. So it's just a matter of moving these around. But I appreciate if you're the person who's put the document together, you're worried about where the document is and what the document looks like, and you don't particularly want to manually move a page because anything could happen. But you've seen me do it and it does actually work. So that's what happens if it's from Word. It does a fairly decent job with that. Right, let's bat on, or we'll be here till well after it's dark. So the next thing, I will save that file. No, we don't want it in there. Oh yeah, that'll do. That'll do. Report. There we go. In case we have any questions on it and we need to return to it. And that one was our side notes. Notes. Let's just put that in there. Right, we're moving on to an entirely new tool, which is the book tool, which I happen to have opened, but then I closed it again by the look of it. Right, what's the... Oh, I did. It's there. There it is. Book. What's the difference between an Affinity Publisher file and an Affinity Publisher book file? So what I actually have in my data here, in my books tool, is I have a bonus and back matter file, which is an Affinity Publisher file. I have chapter 1 and chapter 2 separate, but they are also Affinity Publisher files. And I have a cover and front matter file. But somewhere in here, I have a book file, an AF book file. Now, an AF book file is a wrapper file that wraps itself around AF pub files. So these files, the chapters, the back matter, front matter, index, any content of your book is like a child file to the book file. So let's have a look how that works. So in here, you can either create a new book or you can open a book. Now, you probably initially won't have a book that you can open, so you're looking to create one. You can also create a book from the File menu. You have File New, which we've seen gives us the new dialog box. Books are not mentioned in here, but you have a dedicated option to create a new book. Right, I will create a new book from there. Now, it does nothing on the main stage. It just creates this framework and it says untitled. You have a lot of options available from the menu. So you can have a new book, open a book. You can save a book as. Now, I think I'd like it to prompt me to save the book at the beginning rather than have me playing around with the book and it not actually be saved. So I can do a save as on the book. And we can put that, there'll do. Right, book. And that changes what's displayed up here. If you have more than one book open, you will see them listed in there, but I only have the one. And then you start building the book. So the first thing I'll do is I'll open the cover and front matter. That is my table of contents, etc. So if I look what I've got, I have my cover, and I have a few other pages, introductions up to the table of contents. Obviously, this table of contents, it's got dummy data in it at the moment, but this table of contents wouldn't be able to generate much because there's no more content in this file. So let's get out of that. That's what we've got, which was this file here, cover and front matter. So I will add that. Hang on, I need to go back to books. That's right. I will add that cover and front matter in there. It doesn't open it. I can open it from here if I want to. So I can go up to there, double click it, and it will open it. And you can see now it has a slightly different icon, which is a status icon. It's saying it's open for edit. But I can close that, and then I get a tick next to it saying it's ready to go. The other icon that we've got, which is there, only one file will have that icon. And it's indicating that the styles from that document are the styles that will be applied to all the documents. But we haven't got any other documents at the moment. So let's drag in the bonus and back matter. And let's drag in chapter 2. And we'll drag in chapter 1. Right, problem straight away. The back matter and bonus thing shouldn't be there, should it? It should be at the end, and chapter 1 should be up here. And obviously this is giving you indications in terms of page numbers and what's happening with them. So the first thing I can do in here is drag the thing that's the last one, the bonus and back matter, and then reorder my chapters like that. It's bizarre that this is saying 6 to 10 and 6 to 10. It should be saying, I think there's only a couple of pages in it. And this one's locked as well, which is fascinating as well. I don't know. I'm sure I didn't lock it. I'm sure I didn't, but I must have done something. But this is what you do to organise the chapters. And then if you need to make changes, so let's say that I work through this document and the file containing the correct styles is actually the last one. Then I move over to the space and I click. And now the styles from that last part of the book will take precedence over all of the others. Other things that I can do in here, as I've said, you can add a new chapter, synchronise the whole thing. You can update the numbers. Now, at the moment, it's set to update before output and update them automatically. So I think it's because I've managed somehow to lock a file and I have no idea how I did that, but never mind. You can also in here with your endnotes, update your endnotes. So I must have some of those in there as well. And this one will show you any pages that if you've got an odd page, it's going to merge it in. So you can create books from there. So these are all individual files. Let's have a look at number 1. Oh, it crashed, did it? Oh, right. Okay. That's why it's locked. Oh, and now you won't open. Fabulous. Do you know what we're going to have to do without chapter 1? Because it's got obviously double pages. So what I'll do is I'll open chapter 2. Oh, genius. Right. And I don't want to replace the chapter, do I? Well, we'll just say that chapter 2 is chapter 1 and chapter 2. So that's letting us do that, but I wanted to do something different and I'm not seeing an option to do that. I'll worry about that later. So we've seen the cover and front matter. This is the content for it. And if I open that one, it will open that as well. So you can see we've got chapter 2 open in its own window. We've got the bonus and back matter in its own window and so forth. And at the moment, because these are open for edit, that's why we've got the status open for edit and we don't have the tick on it. But the beauty of it, so let's come out of there. Now you've seen it. If you want to actually, come on, let's get rid of that. If you want to create the book from these 3 separate files, you can do that. So go to export and you get this. Now it says generating preview and I've never actually seen it come to a conclusion. It seems to generate the preview endlessly. But this is the options you've got. This is the export dialog. So obviously, with it being a book, I want it to be PDF. But if you did want it as pages, maybe to send it for print or something like that, you can opt to do that as well. But I will leave it at PDF. Then I've got all of my options, the advanced options for, The colour spaces, overprints, all kinds of stuff. With this one, I'm not going to need to worry about it. Mainly it's this one here. And I'm interested in this. Do I want all the chapters as pages, selected chapters? I'm going to say all of the chapters there. And simple enough to export that. So, documents local, that'll do. It might even open it, you never know. On the other hand, it probably won't. And if it did, it would be opening it in Acrobat. I know, the shame. Right, let me see if I can find that file. Has it done it? It has. It says book. And I will open that. And there it is. So that is a PDF of my book. And yes, I would love it if Affinity made a PDF app. But there we go. There is my content in PDF. Now, why would you want to do that? If you've seen any of my demonstrations before, you may know that I use Animal Farm, I use Christmas Carol, and it's because they're full books, but they're around the 30 to 35,000 word mark. And Affinity Publisher can handle that brilliantly. So would I particularly, with a book like that, take the content and split it up into chapters? The answer for me is no. But I may well do that with this kind of work, because I may have different people creating the chapters. So I may have sent them out a template, told them to put their content in it and send it back to me, in which case I don't want the manual job of putting those pages in an individual file. And these images, these chapters are quite image heavy. So rather than have Affinity Publisher risk it slowing down, just keep them separate. If you find that it's difficult, you've got 2 chapters on vegan food and you want to change logos and things, there are ways to do that with symbols. Or you could just put 2 chapters together. It's totally up to you. But that is one of the bigger new features. So do we have any questions on that we can't possibly carry on without knowing?
No. There was one earlier about styles.
Mm-hmm.
Did it import the header and subheading styles? How does that look in the styles panel? Do you need to add a new style, or did it auto-create a header style?
Was this when I imported the Word document?
I think it was.
Right, I will open that up. Good job I saved it, wasn't it? Recent files. It was the report one, wasn't it? Right, what it does when it imports a Word file is in our styles panel. Where's my styles panel? It brings them in. So you can see you have the normal style. That wasn't an Affinity Publisher style. That came from the Word file. When you open it up, you have heading 1 and heading 2, which, if we go back in here, the chairman's statement is a heading 1 and the red one is a heading 2. So if I wanted to change that, it's brought them in. These styles were created in Word. It's also brought in the EndNote text, and down here, that tiny, you can barely read it. It says these are character styles, and the character styles are used for the numbers within the text. So that's what it looks like in the panel. I do have in here my hierarchy shown. So yours may look like that. That's the default. I can't be doing with that. It doesn't indicate to me the hierarchy of the styles. What style is based on what? So I choose to turn on my hierarchy, and then I can fold them up and everything's way more logical. But yes, it brings them in from Word, and if you then want to make subsequent changes to them, you can. So if we go to our heading 2 and we edit it, and we go to the colour, you can see the colour at the moment is red. Let's have that some lurid objectionable pink, and you can see as I'm moving it, it's even previewing it. So actually that doesn't look bad, does it? Like a green. So I click on that, it's updated the style, it was updated through the entire document. There's our auditor's report. So the styles from Word work in exactly the same way. In Word they may have different settings, but it does a very good job bringing them in. So hopefully that explains that. Right.
There's another question here.
Okay.
From Dale. When I try and change the default bullet character, the gap between the bullet and the first word goes away, and I can't find a way to restore it.
You can do that. Is this in the footnotes and endnotes thing?
It doesn't say, but it's just posted it in.
You can add it back in. there is a way to add a character, any character you like, after the bullet point. So what would be after the bullet point is probably an N dash or an M dash. And what you would need to do is actually go in and manually put that character in the style. It can be put in the style, I think. So that's what you would do with that. Okay, let's get rid of this. Why are you open? Too many apps open. Right, so what have we got coming up next? That was point 4. Oh, this one's kind of cool. I must admit, wasn't overly excited myself, but you might be. Your mileage may vary. Right, what I have got here, just a standard page. Let's say I want to create a layout for a grid of photos. So we have these placeholders that we can use, the picture frames, and we can add them. And we can copy them and paste them. And then we can try and move them into the right place and it doesn't quite fit. And you can keep doing this. What they've added is what they're calling a quick grid. So let's get rid of that. Be warned, if you're going to try this, it's easier if you're left-handed. I'm moving my keyboard. So what I need to do is I need to get the tool first and I need to draw one out, but I want it to be a square at the moment. So I need to hold the Shift key down and draw. If I let go of the Shift key, all kinds of things. So I'm holding the Shift key with my left hand and I am moving this with the mouse. Why is this relevant? Because the next step is to use the arrow keys. So if I'd use the Shift key on the left hand side of the keyboard, I'd need a third hand. So I'm holding the Shift key on the right hand side of the keyboard. I'm right-handed with my mouse. That's why I've used that. Now holding everything down, the Shift key to keep this square, the mouse button, so it's because it needs to be selected. So I'm trying to get that to 60. Let's get that to 60. Right, mouse left button is click down, Shift key is click down, and now I'm pressing the arrow key. And that gives me a repeated shape across, and if I use the down arrow, downwards. If I use the up arrow, it takes them away. Right, let's get that many and then let go of everything. They are all selected, so they're shown over here as picture frames, but they're still all selected. So now I can squish them down and get them in a group. That's the first thing I can do with that. Right, I'm going to let go again now. Go back and do exactly the same thing. So holding the Shift key down. Actually, I don't need to hold the Shift key down. I really don't need to do that because I'm going to move it later anyway. But let's say I do want to hold the Shift key down like that. Then use my arrow keys like that. And then I'm still holding everything down. So I've got the Shift key held down, keep the square. I've got the mouse button held down, and I'm now going to hold down the arrow key. And what that will enable me to do, that is not what I wanted to do, is space that out. It's adding space in. I don't particularly, I don't like this. I would do this by hand, but it's a flagship new feature show, so I'm showing you. So I'm holding the down arrow. That's probably near enough. I've got some kind of gap that I'm happy with. So now I'm letting go of everything. Everything on the screen is still selected. So for the last minute precision, I can just do that. I would probably just do it by hand, but the option is there. So tell me, would you use that? Or is it all too fiddly? Because now I'm going to move the keyboard back to where it was so I can use the left-hand side of it. But yeah, that's what they've added, the ability to do that. What I would do with it when I've done that to get consistency across pages is, of course, take that and put it on a master page, which couldn't be easier. It's already selected, so I'm going to cut it, go to a master page. There's my master page. This is the right-hand side of my master page, and paste it in. And there we go. This master is applied to this page, and then they come through. And that way, if I want to have the same layout on multiple pages, I can do that. So it's using the quick grid and master pages to make that work. Okay, let's get rid of that. Stick with this file. In fact, I won't do that. I will save it. Right, and now we'll get rid of it and get a new file. So what I'm going to do with the next feature is similar in terms of I'm going to put something on there. So I've got a frame, an image, a picture placeholder that I'm going to then put across the page. So I want a kind of mood board kind of effect. So I'll drag that there like that and that there. I'm just making copies of it. What I could do is change them in some kind of way. They don't need to be identical, so I can make it look more like a mood board. So what have I got there? 5. And I put that there for 6, 7 and 8. So I've got 8 of them. Right, I don't know if you ever use this feature, but it's better now than it was. So I am going over here to go and find my files. I have my numbered images. So what I'm going to do is go to File. Oh, don't do that. Come on, File and Place. And from in there, trying to navigate, and it's not letting me. Come on. Why are you not doing that? You are not doing... There we go. It's a little bit behind today. Right. So I've got 8 images. They're really fantastic images. But there's a reason that they're numbered. Right. I want to place all of these images. So I'm going to open them. This opens up a secret panel. A panel you cannot manually open. Why is it opened 4 before 1? That's not impressive. Right, this panel only shows when you have selected multiple items to place. And I swear when I did this last time, it worked. Yeah, you know the famous did it in rehearsal. Right, I'm just going to place that and then come out of it because I really want these in the right order. That was the whole point of it. So let's try the place thing again and see if we can get them loaded in there in the right way. It definitely worked in rehearsal. It was the only thing I did rehearse. Right, so I've selected them all. Now they're loaded in right. Right, the reason that they're very simple graphics and not beautiful pictures of dogs and cats is so we can see where they're going to go. If you've never used this tool before, it opens this separate Place Images panel that you can't get to any other way, and it loads the image, the one with the blue background, into your pointer. And you can then hover and decide where you would like that image placed. And if I were to click, it would place just that image. If I want to place number 4 before 1, I can do that as well. So you select in here what you want to place. Right, but we have 8 frames, we have 8 images. Why do I need to click these things 8 times? Let's just hover over, select them all, hover over the first one and click. And it populates all of the images. Your image placement panel disappears because there's no more images to place, and they are pasted in here in the right order, which was why I needed them loaded in the right order. And this can work across pages. You're not limited to individual pages. It just takes the first images and puts it in the first placeholder and then works through with the second, the third, all the way through to however many you've got, 50, 60, 100, doesn't matter. So it's a really fast way of doing that. You may need, with proper images, to tweak it a bit. So you may need to change the properties of the window and scale the image and things like that. It's just a really fast way to place your images. And that feature is called the Place Autoflow. Right, the other thing that you can do, which I found a little bit strange, but we'll do it anyway. Right. If I open up a browser, let's open up Brave. You're thinking about it? You are. Right, and I don't want that open, so let's get rid of that. And going to go to a site, and hopefully this site will work. And then I will show you. So, I am going to Pixabay. And, oh, let's look for Samoyed dogs, because, you know, why not? They're adorable. Oh, they all look like my baby. Right, let's pick one. This is just too cute. That's not a Spitz, it's a Sami. Right, I have this image being on Pixabay. Obviously, I can download it. But I'm going to move it to the side. I'm going to get myself a new page. Right, I'm going to put on that I would like picture up there. And I am dragging and dropping. Right, and that, hopefully, fingers crossed, will add a remote image. Fingers crossed, it will add a remote image. I didn't download it, I just dragged and dropped it from the browser and it's loaded it in there. We used to have, on the document menu, some managers at the bottom. Those two have moved to the Windows menu. So we have section manager, data manager, font manager, resource manager. That's the one I'm looking for. Oh, it's actually embedded that. I didn't really want that, but never mind. If that had worked, it would be a remote image. Do I think that's a good idea? Well, it's fast. If it works as a remote image, it's fast. But if that image disappears, your document could be affected. You're also going to potentially have problems if you open this file on somewhere where it can't reach that destination. So it's a new feature that you can have images that are live images. I don't like that idea. I like my images where I know they are. I don't even link to stuff. I embed everything. But it's a new variation of a linked image, only it's linked remotely, not linked locally. Doesn't work for me, but it might work for you. Who knows? Right, let me go back into here and do some formatting with this. So we've got some stuff in here. These are image placeholders, and you've seen I've put images in them. I'm going to move these up because I'm also going to get some extra stuff here. So let's say I wanted a lovely circle there. Oh, isn't the design fantastic? And what else could we have? Oh, let's have one of these, a double star, because we can. Right, so I've got some stuff in here. Right, there are better ways to do this. If you know the better ways, put them in the chat. But what I'm about to do with this is I'm going to format it. And so, in the colours, at the moment, it's a kind of dirty grey thing. So I'll make that a nice blue. And on the border of it, which looks like it's pretty black at the moment, let's lighten that up and make it, oh, lurid pink. Right, and I will put a stroke on that that is wide enough that we can see it. There we go. Right, we've not had the ability, we've had text styles. We have styles, which are object styles, but they're not updatable. So what they've added, I'm assuming that you are all aware of the fact that up here we have a colour picker. It might just look like it's a static colour well, but it actually isn't. I can drag that. Oh no. Actually, this is good because I can show you. On a Mac, you can't breathe without Apple getting involved. So what I've tried to do is go and pick a colour off my screen. And now it says Affinity Publisher would like to record this computer's screen, which obviously it doesn't want to. It just wants to access it. But it won't let me do it unless I open my system preferences. So let's do that. I wonder where it'll open that. Oh, there we go. Right, and I need to give it permission in here. This is fun, isn't it? Right, I don't think it puts my password on the screen, but just in case it does, I'll whip it over there and put the password in. But then I'll bring it back, right, and do that. That unlocks it. And then I have to go a-hunting to find it. So somewhere in here should be Affinity Publisher 2. There it is. You can see the other Affinity apps have already been given permission. So I've done this in Designer. But this was live. You can't do this twice. So I shall put a tick in the box. And it now wants to quit and reopen it, which won't do at all. So I'll say later, come into here. And it won't do at all because I need to save this. So I'll call that Styles and quit it. Yes, save the book file while you're at it. Save that as well. Save the lot. And then we will go back into it. And now I will be able to show you the feature. Oh, look at this. Did I mention it's a version? Well, it's a version 1 of version 2. No, just ignore everything and open it. Just do as you're told. Right, let's go and get that file, which was Styles, wasn't it? So let's open that. And now when I drag and drop from here, having given it permission, it will pick that colour and load it into there. So that's what the colour picker does. That means if I select something else, I could do that, and now it's got a blue border. It's got a really skinny blue border, but it's got a blue border. So that's what the colour picker does. Over here now, if I go into there, that's the colour picker. That's what that would normally look like. The triangle at the bottom, the disclosure triangle, if you click on there, it will show you extra tools. A lot of these have the same option. You click and hold on the disclosure triangle, it shows you the extra options. If the disclosure triangle is just too small for you, you can hover over the button, click and hold, and after about a second, that menu will appear. And that is what we want to do down here, because we want to choose the style picker tool. Works exactly the same way as the colour picker, even looks pretty similar. So I need to click where I want to copy the style from. And if you noticed, that flipped over. It was pointing to the left, down to the left, and now it's pointing down to the right, which means it's loaded. So if I go in here, you can see it looked like that, and the pipette bit at the bottom is white, but once you've clicked somewhere, half of it becomes black and you've loaded that style. What you then do is just click on anything else that you want formatted that way. Right, now I've run out of shapes, so I want to go and get some shapes. As I draw these in, you can see I've got a white border on that and all kinds of weird things going on. Right, if I switch back to this tool, it still remembered what I had set before. I don't have to reload it. In fact, it can get really annoying because it's like, well, how do I unload it? You have an unload option at the top, so you can click that, and that then flicks back to pointing down to the left. And you can then go away and pick something up and then apply that to it. So it's put the blue on it and it's put a border on it, and you can click around like that. Now that one, that's just vanished, hasn't it, from white? I clicked away from it, I think. So let me pick that up from there and click it on all these, and you get consistency by clicking on it like that. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it's great for consistency initially, but if somebody comes in and they think, oh, I think that stroke's a bit big, and they change it, but not that much, you'd look at that and think, is that the same? It might be, might not be, I'm not sure. Then you've got inconsistency and you might not even notice. So proper styles would be fabulous, but it's a good starting point. It works similarly to the format painter in Office. So if you've ever used that, it's similar but better. Better because it remembers things and you can manually unload it. But you know, it will remember that for hours on end if you don't use it for anything else. So that one's quite nice. Right, there is also in here, in my select, you can choose to select the same object. So if you're looking to select a stroke weight on something, so let's say that one. So I've got that selected and I go to select and I want to select the same object with a not stroke weight. That's right. I want it to be equal. Right, just so we can see those, I'm going to move them and you can see the one that I manually changed didn't get selected. So that is a reasonable way to work out whether they're all the same or not. Or maybe you want to make a selection of certain things to make a change to them. So deselecting that, but we'll go back and select the one. Go to select and go to select the same object which has the same fill and stroke colour. Now notice it's not talking about the weight at that point. It's if it has the same fill and stroke, select it. And this time, if I move these, it will select that odd one. So it's just a fast way to work with things. Did anybody mention the better way to do this, Mike?
Not that I've spotted. No.
Mike hasn't seen it, so that's a no. Right, a better way to work with this is if you've got something like you want to have this star thing, for example, and you want to give something 5 stars. I would make it as a symbol. I know what you're thinking, you can't make symbols in Publisher. No, but you do have Studio Link and you can do it in Designer. So if I wanted these things exactly the same and I wanted them to maintain the fact they are identical, even if I change them, the way to do it is to Studio Link to Designer, make a symbol, and then Studio Link back to Publisher. So this is kind of a quick and dirty way of doing it. But the better way, and I know I appreciate it takes time, but future you will thank past you when you don't have to do it 20 times and use these tools for, well, just select it if. You don't have to do any of that. You just go in and make one change. That's what a pro would do. Right, so what have we got there? Oh, this one's rather cool. For this one, I need to show you a file. I will show you the file in a moment, but what I will do here is create, oh, what are you doing on that screen? I will create another new file. So just create, and I've got a page that I can put this on. Right, what I want to do is place a file, and I have a file to place. The file that I'm going to place is a very rough, do not judge me, very, very rough. Let's just get rid of that and bring it back. Right, like a floor plan type thing of an outdoor space. Right, I want to place that in this document. So we have the place command up here. And it's going to take me out. I'm going to go and find that, which is in number 10. That's not going to work for me at the moment. Just a sec. Right, I need to get it open in my Finder before I can go and find it, as it were. Right, so over here, I need to go into my proposed design. It really isn't enjoying this today, but there's my PDF. So I'm going to open it. It's loaded it in, and I will draw that out. Like that. I can take it full page if I want. I can take it over the edge of the page. Doesn't matter. Purely for demonstration purposes. Right, so this is a PDF. If we look over here, we can see that it is an embedded file, the PDF. I can't do anything with it in the layers panel in terms of maybe we could turn the reflection pond off, or we could turn the enchanted woods off. Can't do that in here. But what we do have at the top, if there were multiple pages, they added in one of the last updates for version 1, the ability to show the page. But we have layers in here. So this is the linked layer visibility overrides. Lovely name. Right, at the moment it says core features. When I go in, I can see that I've got 4 descriptions. And so do we want to see the foliage? No. And do we want to see the water features? No. Should we turn off the descriptions? Yes, and that's the area that we're working with. So what we're doing here is interacting with a PDF, which usually you can't, you'd have to deliberately go and manually edit it to do this. We can toggle them on and off in our document. So I will go back in and I will toggle them on. So there's the foliage coming in, and there's the water features, and there's our descriptions. Now, where did this come from and how was it made? Because not all files are made equal. So what I will do, I'm going to open the PDF in Acrobat. Your PDF editor of choice or viewer of choice may have different features entirely. In here you can see I've only got the one page. I have no idea if this will show me the layers. I mean, it will, but I must admit the interface looks like Fisher-Price had a hand in it, and I've no idea where it is. But I can search the tool, so let's see if there's a layer tool. If not, never mind. Yes, I'm trying to type in there and you're ignoring me. Oh, there's no layer tool, so I've no idea how we can see it. I'd have thought over here somewhere, but who knows? Your guess is as good as mine. I'm not great with Acrobat. I used to be fabulous with it, but now I can't find a thing. Right, there are layers in there. I can guarantee you that. I just can't show them to you in it. Oh, hang on. Doesn't that icon? Oh, look at that. Right, actually looks like I know what I'm talking about now. Right, so I can toggle them on and off in here. There's my foliage going, and there's my water features and my description. So the layers exist within the PDF file. So we've proved that. But how did they get in the PDF file? Because not all PDF files are made equal. Right. Let's get rid of it and let's have a look at the original file. So the original file is an Affinity Designer file. I'm going to open it up in Affinity Designer 2 and show you how I made it so you can have layers that toggle on and off with the linked layer visibility. It is opening Affinity Designer 2 on the wrong screen. Where's it put it now? Oh, there we are. Right, that's it. It's there. So there's the file. Over here, I've got all of the elements. So here's the enchanted woods and all the rest of it. Right, there are my text layers. There's the water features. And yes, in here I can toggle them on and off. But what I've done to make them toggleable offable, is that a word? Toggleable offable. It is now. Right, in my PDF is instead of putting them here in groups, they're in layers. So let me just show you that these two water features, normally I group them. So we have the folder and it says a group. A group isn't a toggleable layer. So there's no point putting it in a group if what you want is to create a PDF that you can toggle content off in. You need to make a layer. So instead of grouping content, so let's take these out of here and put them down there. In fact, they need to be up here really, don't they, so we can see them. But we'll deliberately get rid of the water feature thing. So copy the text and then get rid of that layer. So I've deleted it. If I group these together, that will enable me to toggle them on and off in here. It will not do that in the PDF. So instead of grouping them, I would go down to the bottom of that panel, add a layer, name the layer, and then grab the elements that I want to be in there and put it in the right place in the hierarchy. And then my indicator here is it's a layer, a layer, a layer, and a layer. Only a layer can be toggled on and off. A group cannot. So that's the source file. I then create the PDF, and that is what enables the option in here to turn the layers on and off, which is rather cool. So rather than having to create from anywhere else 4 or 5 different files for somebody to be able to say this is where the woods are, this is where the water features are, you can just put one file in and then turn the layers on and off from within Affinity Publisher. That's really useful. I love that. But you do need to know how to make the PDFs to make that happen. Right, so let's get rid of that. You've seen me be absolutely convinced that that's the text frame, and it's not. It's the artistic one. Right, let's put my magazine, my mag. Right, so we've got there a masthead, and that is artistic text. And then we decide we don't want it to be artistic text. So at this point, instead of me saying, oh no, and deleting it, no, whatever, I could have just carried on like that. And I can now, in here, once I've got it selected, and it's a bit of a pain to actually get it selected, and right-click in spot on the right place. But as well as converting it to curves, which we've always been able to do, you can now convert it to a text frame. You might wonder, well, what's the difference? It depends on how you want to format this and how you want to edit it. But if you already have the text, so somebody may have created a file, I get this all the time from clients, where there's my masthead, and I look at it and I think that's not a masthead, it's a text block. What you can do, so I'm making sure I've got it selected in the right place. Go on, let me right click on it. There we go. I can convert that, or I should be able to convert it. Oh, come on. Again, this worked perfectly in rehearsals. No, you're not doing it properly, are you? I need to select it. That's the starting point. And then I need to click in just the right place to get the options to convert it back to art text. And I'm clearly not selecting in the right place. But you can convert to a text frame and back to artistic text. So I think that's going to be more useful when other people give you stuff. But it is a feature and it is there. Right, I'm going to open a file. So let's get one of our reports. We are heading to the end, you will be glad to know. Let's look at our report. Not exactly amazing, but it'll do. Right, we might want here to bring in an image of some description, which I haven't already got. So what I'll do is, no, I don't want you to do that. Come on. I'll go to the stock panel and I will put in soccer. I know I should be able to put football because it's football. But stock images, that'll all be American stuff. So you need to, with your stock disclaimer thing, sort that out. So yes, I understand. And are you going to bring it in for me, or do I have to do it again? It's thinking about it. Right, so I've got that in there. Obviously, at that stage, I would need to text wrap that. We'll have it like that. And I've got an image in there. Right, is that image linked or embedded? Well, that's where you need to go to your window resource manager and have a look. And that one is embedded. It doesn't really matter for what I'm going to do next, which is you had the ability, this was added in the very last update, to save as a package. And the rationale of saving as a package is that it will package up the fonts, so these are the fonts that we used, and any images. And it will enable me to save that so I can share that with other people. So I will just save that as a package there. Blah, blah, blah. Oh dear, no, we don't want that, do we? No, I don't. Okay, we'll go and find another one. Right, let's put it on the desktop. I know I shouldn't, but I will. Right, let's get it on the desktop and package it up there. Oh, it's saying that isn't empty either. Oh, seriously? Oh, let's make a new folder. That one's got to be empty. In fact, let's tell it. It's an empty folder. Right, hopefully it'll agree with us at this point. Oh, it does. Awesome. So what it's done is it's created that package. Previously, when you opened that package, so I don't particularly want to save any of that, I will go and I will find that file, which is, my desktop is empty, it's lying. Look, there's the empty folder. But this is my package, and it's an AF package file, and it has with it the fonts, and it has with it the images. She said, only the image isn't there. Well, it should be. Okay, we seem to have a problem, but that wasn't me, it's them. Right, when you send this to somebody and they open this package, so I am going to do an open with, that is my default, so that's fine. It gives me this information, that's fine, and I'll open it. And the image is there, even though it's not there. That's interesting. But if I were to make changes to this, so let's say I want to add this, because you know the World Cup's coming up. We'll be back before the postcards as ever, but triumph of hope over expectation if you're an England fan. Right, so I'm going to put that image in it. Now, normally at this stage, if I then wanted to save that as a package, I'd have to save it as a different package because you couldn't overwrite a package. But now it should let me save that. I'd love to show you that the image is there. I've just pressed Command and S and I've saved it. So it doesn't complain anymore about saving a package. But you would potentially have a problem if you had decided you don't want that image and then that got taken out of the package. So the rule with the package is nothing's deleted. So if you add content to it, it just adds to it. If you take it away, the content remains in the package, so somebody else think you shouldn't have deleted that, they can put it back. That is the point of that new feature. Right, where did my Finder window go? Oh, I put that over here, didn't I? To prove the point that the empty folder was actually empty. I see it's still got no images in it, but never mind. It must be there. Okay, let's get back to my data. I've got two more things to show you. The last one is just mind-blowing. She lied. Okay, so publisher, back to publisher. Right, I particularly like this. So in here, I constantly, in all of the apps, have the assets panel available because I use these all of the time. And the assets panel now looks slightly different. I think it's much better. The visuals indicate now that my sidebars at the top are a group. And when I fold them up, it folds it neatly. I just think that is much better. Much better. So there are all the stuff that I have in there. Obviously with this one, going to need to do something. These are the old icons. So what I can do in here, a category is the top level, this branding level. And I've got one for Mike and Mac Bytes and calendar creation kits and all kinds of stuff, tutorials. But what I want to do is I need new icons, version 2 icons, don't I? So I don't want to create a new category, that's at the top level. I want to create Where are we at? A subcategory. Where are we? Rename duplicate link. Come on. It's never in the right place in here. I swear it's not. Do I do it from in here? Oh, come on. Subcategory. Can't see it. I have a blind spot with this one. Right, so having a think about it. It will then create me a blank empty space, and by default it calls it assets. This menu, not the one at the top, this one down here, is where I rename the subcategories. So this one would be the icons, but this would be for version 2. Like that. And then I would put them in here. Now, I do happen to have the icons somewhere in my downloads. Not in that folder, I don't. Right, let's go get them. Affinity. Now, they're not at the moment in the same folder. They're all over the place. So I would be adding them one at a time, which I can actually do. So I do have, here's the designer icon. So dragging and dropping it from the Finder, I can put it straight in there. But I can also here drag multiple ones. So what I'm going to do now is try and find, why do I keep opening the wrong folders? Come on. Right, there's that one. And what I'm doing is I'm taking them out of where they are and putting them together, and then I will show them to you. Right, so what I now have here is the two files, SVGs, Publisher. Why have I got Publisher and Publisher? No, Photo and Publisher, SVG versions. Right, dragging and dropping from there over my icons, and it puts them in. And there they are. Now, they're not named perfectly for me, but obviously I can select one of these and I can rename that. So that would be Affinity Photo. And I love the fact of how easily I can get things in there. Now, if I want my version 2 icons, let's leave them open, but I want the version 2 icons underneath the version 1 icons, then I can go in here and I can move them up. I have no idea why I can't drag and drop them. I would like to know that as well, but I can't drag and drop them. But there they are. So that's a couple of improvements to the assets panel, and I use that all the time. Right, the final awesome feature. You're going to want to play with this, I swear you are. This is number 14 if you're keeping count. Is I'm going to open up a file. So open with Affinity Publisher 2. That is the cat. You're wondering, aren't you? It's the Affinity cat. Only that is version 1 of the Affinity cat. There is an upgrade to the Affinity cat. Right, in here, these are your shapes. You will notice there is no cat shape, but there is. Right, it's hidden until you hold the Option key and click it. And then we have the cat tool at the bottom. I am not joking you. We have the cat tool. Right, but the cat tool has been upgraded. So we now have, I think that's a cuter cat. It's not exactly as real, is it? But it's a cute cat. And these cats are just shapes that you can play around with to your heart's content. So if you want to change the colour of the cat, what's a good colour for a cat? You don't see many blues, although there is a Persian blue, isn't there? And you can put strokes on the cat and all kinds of stuff. There we go, the cat. So there is an updated cat tool. Can't say fairer than that, can I? Right, let's get back to where we were. So, an hour 45. That's not bad for 14 features, is it? Not for me, it's not. Usually takes way more than that. Okay, are you going to behave yourself? I'd like to think you would. Awesome. So let's have a recap of those 14 things. I've looked at the file new dialog. The update to the interface, it's a lot chunkier, but it feels more responsive. The footnotes, endnotes and sidenotes, one of the biggest features, book tool being the other. The quick grid, which you need to be ambidextrous and preferably have 3 hands, but some people seem to love that. Me less so. Let me know if you love it. The place autoflow, which is going to be such a time saver. That was the one where I placed 8 files, the files that were numbered 1 to 8, but it could be 800, it doesn't matter. So that's going to save a lot of time. The linked remote files, I'm never, ever, ever, ever going to be using that, but your mileage may vary. The Style Picker tool, where that is basically the format painter from Office, only better. Selecting the same, so selecting the same shape, the same colours, the same whatever. The linked layer visibility overrides with the PDF layers that you could toggle on and off. Love that. By the way, you have always been able to toggle on and off Affinity Designer layers. So if instead of putting the PDF in, I'd put in the Affinity Designer file, I could toggle those on and off as well. Converting text frames between the two options you have. Saving over a package, which does not delete anything. Updates to the asset panel and the cat tool, because who doesn't need a cat tool? Right, we are going to be going into Q&A, but if you are not interested in our Q&A, I would like to say thank you very much for being with us today. I hope you have learnt something, and if you have, leave me a comment. Love to hear from you. There is a like button if you have indeed enjoyed yourself. And how do you learn more? Well, near the like button, there's also a subscribe button, which will mean you'll be notified of live events and videos. Don't want to miss anything. Even better than that, there is my mailing list, which you will get first notification of any events or any videos or any other content that I produce. And that is at elainegiles.com/VIP. A few of you have found this button, the next button, yourselves. Thank you very much. But you will also see there is a thanks button down there. If you are completely unaware of what that does, it is a way to make a donation in thanks that goes via YouTube. So when we're live, it's a chat thanks, isn't it? A super chat thanks. Afterwards, it is some other kind of thanks. But it's there, and that's what it's for. Okay? Right, so Q&A. I have already had a range of questions, so we'll start with those, and then we'll move on to any that have been acquired live. But the number one first question that I got was, is it a subscription? I don't think people would have thought it was a subscription, but for the fact that a few months ago, 2-3 months ago, Affinity sent out a questionnaire, and it was, how would you fancy a subscription? Well, I think every answer to that was no. So no, there is no subscription. There are 4 types of perpetual license. There is the universal license, which I highly recommend. Even if you don't use Windows now or you don't use Mac, it's still cheaper to get that universal license. And you will not have to worry until version 3 comes out. Even if you switch platform, you buy an iPad, you buy an Android tablet, and you're no longer using it, right? You have access to everything. The second type of license is where you buy a single license for something like on macOS. So you want to buy Photo and you want to buy Designer, and that's all you want to buy. To be honest, it isn't that much more expensive to get either one more app or the whole thing. But if that's what you want to do, there is a single application license for macOS, 1 license per app. There is a single application license for Windows, 1 per app, and a single application license for iPadOS, 1 per app, which is why you would be juggling 9 licenses, which is what the universal license is for. So no, there is no subscription. Can I still buy version 1 was the next question. No, it's no longer for sale. So if you were an app short, it's time to move to version 2. So you can no longer buy version 1. Can you still use version 1? Yes, you can. So if you find no benefit in any of the features that I've covered or any of the other features, you don't have to upgrade. Use what you've got now. The only caveat on that will be that eventually your operating system, if you upgrade your operating system, you will reach a point where where version 1 is not supported on the new operating system. That will happen much faster on Mac than it will on Windows. Windows is way more forgiving in that department. So yes, you can still use version 1. There was a slightly different question related to the same thing, which is, can I use version 1 and version 2, which we're going to come on to. But in relation to this one, can I still use version 1? The next question was, I can't find version 1 in the App Store, which was where they bought it from, and I need to install it. What can I do? So what the person is doing is going to the App Store and typing in Affinity Publisher, and it's saying, hello, here's version 2. But the person hasn't bought that version. So they're looking to install the version that they already had bought. Okay, what you need to do about that is not search the App Store. Go to your list of purchased apps and scroll back, and it will be listed in there. So it's no longer available via a search, but you should find that you can install it via your list of apps. That one's a lot of people have stumbled over, because I think their issue was, and I did this myself, I've got to admit, how do I download version 1 that I bought directly from Affinity? Well, I go into my Affinity account and all my downloads are available in there. So it will depend on where you bought it, but if you can't find it in the App Store and you bought it in the App Store, you need to look at your previous purchases. Which brings into play, what's the difference between the direct version and the App Store version? And here we're talking about version 2. Right, the App Store version is the only way to install on the iPad. So if it's the iPad version you're talking about, there is no direct version. You must buy it through the App Store. But you'll notice it's free. And that's how the universal license works. You can download it and then just plug your account in and you're good to go. Now, the desktop versions are slightly different. There is a store version for Windows. I have no idea what the difference is between the Windows Store version and the direct version. No idea. But I can tell you on a Mac that there are restrictions, because this is Apple, in terms of sandboxing. That won't matter to 99% of users. But it could mean that your asset files are in a different location. That's it. But the apps do work the same. Could you, if you've bought the direct version, download the App Store version and use it? There's a very good chance you can. I haven't tried it, but I have tried it with Office. And that's how Office's universal license works. One account lets you use either the direct version or the version from the App Store. Why would that matter? Well, you could be out on a client site and you could maybe want to show them the app, but you don't want to log in and do all the paraphernalia with passwords and stuff, and license keys. So you could download it from the store and then log in with your account and use it that way. The price is the same, so it's a matter of personal choice. But paying Serif direct, because the price is the same, gives them more money, because Apple take 30%. Personally, I'd rather Serif had 100% of my purchase price rather than just 70% and give 30% to Apple. But as I say, that's a personal choice. If you have a credit balance in the App Store, or somebody else is paying the bill, or App Store vouchers that you've bought at a discount, then maybe you want to buy it through the App Store. Either way, you'll need an Affinity account. The next most popular question was, let me have a look here. I have literally, through my side eye, seen that we have had some super chats. Thank you very much for that. I am going to go back up the chat shortly, but thank you very, very much. Right, next one. The next one is, how many devices can I install the apps on? Glad you asked. On the day of release, and many of you might not know this, but in a former life, I do apologise for this, I was a lawyer. I know. Read law at university, postgrad, and then practiced law. Hated it. That's what I do. Why I do what I do now. Love it. But I went and I had a look, and even as a lawyer, it may as well have been written in Greek. So I read it out to Mike, and Mike, you were the same, weren't you?
I was.
Yeah, like, what does that mean? I said, I don't know. I think the words are English, but, put together, they don't mean anything. But I worked out from it that you could install it on as many devices as you own and control. Luckily, yesterday, they clarified it. That is exactly what it means. So the wording is, as a private individual, you can install Affinity apps on as many devices as you own, which run the operating systems you have purchased a license for. In the case of a universal license, you can install on any iPads, Macs, or Windows PCs you own. Other people, for example, members of your household, are also allowed to use the apps on those devices. But this is the only caveat. Unless that other person is using it for commercial use, in which case they need to purchase their own license. But that is the only caveat. So if, like me, you happen to have 14 iPads, not all of them will run it, but a fair few iPads, you can install it on all of them. You can also install it on all of your computers, which is fantastic. This is exemplary. That's exactly how licensing should be. So the only caveat is if somebody is using it commercially. There are licenses for education and business, and that's a different thing entirely. I'm focusing on the personal license, and it's good news. Right, next one. Can version 2 read files from version 1? Yes, it can, in all the apps, but it's a one-way street. When you open it, a version 1 file, you will get a message either at that point or the point that you save it, and it will say, you save this file, it'll save as a version 2 and you won't be able to open it in version 1. But yes, version 2 can read files from version 1. Converse. Can version 1 read the files from version 2? Well, the answer to the previous question should make it clear, no. Version 1 can't read those files. When will that matter? It'll matter if you're sharing work with somebody who only has version 1 and you're using version 2. If it's too late and that has gone, you could export as an SVG and then use that in version 1. But it would not be full fidelity to the version you have in version 2, which is why my advice would be just, even if you only use 2 apps on one platform, go for the universal license. It'll be life will be easier. Future you will love past you if you do that, especially while it's 40% off. So no, version 1 can't do that. Can I use version 1 of Affinity Publisher on the Mac and version 2 on the iPad? If you like, but you won't be sharing files. So again, universal license and use the same version on both platforms. But if you do have the version on Mac and you don't want to upgrade, your upgrade would be a lot cheaper if you were only using one app, which is Affinity Publisher, on one platform, which is the iPad. You can get that for $9.99 and be done. But be aware there are features in the desktop version that are not in the iPad version. So I still think it's a good idea to have a desktop version kicking around. I must admit, I severely underuse the ones on my iPad because I'm a desktop person. I need 3 screens, 50 input devices, and a bag of crisps on the desk to work with. That's just me. If you are an iPad person, fair enough, but make your mind up which one you're doing, and that's it. Unfortunately, there isn't a version 1 for iPad. So if you do want to work on iPad, you're going to have to upgrade on the desktop to get full fidelity. Right. Can I use both version 1 and version 2 on the same device? Yes. I can actually show you that if you like, but on an iPad, you've got version 1 installed of Photo and Designer. When you come to install version 2 of the other 3 apps, they just install alongside and are quite happy. On desktop, they install as Affinity fill in the blank 2, so your original Affinity Photo Publisher and Designer are still there. And yes, you can open them up. So if you do have a file and you need to keep compatibility with version 1, that's not a reason not to upgrade. They can quite happily live side by side on the same device. Right, then I got this question, and this one was more specific, but is there a vectorizing feature in the new version? This person likes to draw by hand and then scan them and turn them into vectors, which they were able to do in Affinity, in Adobe Illustrator. Is there a workaround if not? Right, the feature that you're talking about, everybody loves. Oh, they do. It's the tracing feature. There is no tracing feature, not in Affinity Publisher and not in Affinity Designer. I think it'll come, but it's not there yet. There's no sign of it at the moment. You have a couple of options. One would be to draw in a vector app, maybe on an iPad, so it feels like hand drawing. Your second option is to use an app like Supervectorizer Pro. And what that can do is convert bitmap images or scans into vector images. Is it as good as the tracing feature in Adobe Illustrator? No, it's not. That really is best in class. But it's not that expensive. You know, it's not within the what's Creative Cloud at the minute. I think it's $720 a year. It's not in that stratosphere. It's around the $25 mark. It's not bad, and the more that you tweak with it, the better the result will be. That's what I use. If I have that to do, that's what I use. I find it faster than Illustrator, and I do have Illustrator. So if it was a complex thing, I'd do it in Illustrator. If not, I would use Supervectorizer Pro. So I hope that helps with that. Right, I'm sure we've got lots more questions. So let's flick. Sorry, that was probably like nuclear winter, wasn't it? Let's switch to the questions from today. And I hope you've made a list of all the people I need to thank, Mike. Right, let me get, because I haven't even opened the thing. Have you put the questions in the question thing?
I have, yes.
Everything's jumping. It doesn't like it at all. Right, let me try and get there. It's having a think about it. Slowly having a think about it. Right, do you want to read out the first question?
I can read out the first question.
Well, I get there.
Okay, the first question is, I wish there was some basic photo editing tools built in directly with the program, as opposed to having to jump out to Affinity Photo.
Right, okay. That's the way they work with Studio Link. That's the way they intended this to work from day one. They didn't share that with us for 3 years. No, 4 years. But that was their intention, that Studio Link would do that. Now, when you say switch to it, it's seamless and it's fast. It doesn't open up photo. It takes the photo tools and opens them. They are there in front of you in less than a second. So yes, you are switching view, but it's not like if you're in Designer and you want to edit something in photo, you have to say pass it to photo, and then photo cranks up, and then Designer closes the file, and all sorts happens, and it takes 10 minutes. It's not like that. You just switch the tool set. It doesn't close, it doesn't pass the file anywhere. So it is just like deploying pixel editing tools. But I can't see that they will add it, because it was built like that for a reason. Let's put it like that. Right, what have we got next?
Next one is, this relates to something on Affinity iPad. So I don't know if you want to hold that.
No, let's have it.
This question may not apply for today, but how can I show the rulers in Affinity on the iPad?
Right, I'm presuming this is... Did we not have anybody making a suggestion about that? I said this is not my area of... Let's have a look. Don't see it, so it's probably on some kind of weird shortcut key. Let's have a look. What on earth is that? Right, I'm trying to tap you there. Oh, that's interesting. That flashes up, that tells me absolutely nothing. I don't see an option for it. It could be on a modifier. There is a new kind of interface tool that you'll find down in the left-hand side, so it could be on a modifier somewhere. I would expect it at the top of the screen, possibly with a specific tool selected, is what I would expect. So let's have a look and see if I get that. Alignment. Oh, I've got all kinds of stuff on there, but not the ruler. Why would you do that? I will try and find out for you, but I don't know off the top of my head. It's not showing. I would expect it on the menu, but I don't see it on the menu. I wouldn't know. It's not going to be in document setup, is it? Does it have to toggle on in the preferences? Because they do have a nasty habit of sticking stuff in the preferences. So let's go into the preferences and have a look. User interface. Right. Left-hand mode, automatically hide UI, panning. Artboard, show the status bar. That's warm, isn't it? No, not in there either. Could it be there isn't one? I don't know. I'll find out and let you know. Let's move on to the next one.
Okay.
If anybody knows that, put it in the chat.
The next one, I think you may have answered, was how do Affinity 1 version 1 apps run with files from version 2 apps?
They don't.
Okay.
You'll get an error message. It'll tell you that the file has features in it that are not supported on the version you're trying to open it in.
Another question, is it better to install from scratch?
Well, it's going to install alongside what's there. So it isn't going to say, like, do you want me to overwrite it? There is that one point where it says, do you want me to import the settings? I said yes. Mainly it was the assets. I've had no problem at all. So if you want to start from scratch, feel free.
Next one from Tom. As an author, I'm looking for an end-to-end solution from creation to distribution. Can you talk a little about importing text, and do you think Affinity would ever offer such apps, such tools?
Importing text is easy. You've seen me import the Word stuff today. That's not a problem at all. Where it gets a bit hairy scary is when it's coming from things like Markdown. I wish I could just take my Markdown from Obsidian and copy and paste it and it understand it. Obviously, it'll let me import it, but it's then like, that's interesting. I'm not doing anything with that. What would be fabulous is if they released something along the lines of Adobe InCopy. InCopy is a subscription-based app. Obviously, it's Adobe. I think it's quite cheap, though. I think it's $5 per person per month. And what it is like a text editor that creates that. Well, a text editor that you put text into and format, and InDesign understands it perfectly. So think of it as a very, very, very cut down version of InDesign. So if you've got copy editors who are just dealing with the text and they don't care about the layout, you would use InCopy. And then the layout person would take all of the InCopy files, just drag and drop, import, and everything is perfect. Do I think they'll do that? We could be up to version 7 before that happens. Because I think if I had to choose between an end-to-end workflow and just being able to make an EPUB, probably an EPUB would come first. It would be really nice, but it's not really there yet. I would suggest, if it's books, I would start in Scrivener. And Publisher is the last place I would be. Absolutely the last place. And what I would do is I would do everything humanly possible in Scrivener because it is made for writers. And then to get the best fidelity with Affinity Publisher, I would compile, which is Scrivener's word for export, I would compile from Scrivener to Word, and then I would import the Word file into Publisher and I would do the tidying up in there. Whether I would do that at all or not would depend on the type of book. If the book had lots of graphics in it, you know, headers, footnotes, endnotes, and you name it, then I would have to go through Word. But if it was more like a novel, so I'm looking at like no headings apart from a chapter, I might skip the Word section and I might just export it as plain text and then manually format everything in Publisher. It would depend on the complexity of it. But I'm working on the principle that if you're looking for an end-to-end solution, you want something that's got some features rather than being just plain text. Markdown would be my number one request, but EPUB, it's getting silly with the EPUB thing. I understand it's a layout application, but it's also called Publisher, and we publish to EPUB these days, so it would be nice. Again, I have no idea whether they ever intend to add that, but it would be nice. So hopefully that will help. If you've got any more specific questions on that, please put them in.
Okay, next one. Are the icons resizable?
Which icons are these? Oh, I'm with you in the interface.
Yeah.
They used to be. Let's have a look. So let's come out of there. Let's go back in here and into our preferences. It used to be. So user interface. You can change the background colours, etc. And here's the font UI size. So you've got default and you've got large, and you have an icon style. So if you wanted to change them back to mono, you could. You know, I thought they looked better mono, but now I'm looking at them. That didn't take me long, did it? That did not take me long. So yes, there is a bit of a wiggle room, but not much. But yes, there is.
Okay. What will I lose if I update to Publisher version 2? Will I lose what I'm working on if I update to Publisher version 2?
No, because all the version 1 files will be able to be opened in Publisher 2. The only time you would have an issue with it is if you only updated, you only upgraded to version 2 of one specific app, and then you would have compatibility issues, which is why universal license, just go for that and be done.
Okay, can I set the default font set in Publisher version 2?
If you mean every time you create a file, it has the same styles, and those styles are your styles, your particular font, yes, you can.
I have imported a book template IDML from Creative Market, paid for it in version 1. It's image heavy, charts and photos. Should I make it a book in version 2? What would be the pros and cons?
If you've already started with it, I'm presuming it wouldn't be an IDML file anymore. Is it already in one file? Or are you looking to maybe extract a chapter and then multiply the chapters? If it's image heavy, it should perform better as a book. But do remember that the book feature is brand new and there are bound to be bugs in it. I mean, you've seen today, I've had 3 messages to say it crashed. It didn't crash. I closed it. So if it's really important, I might hang off for maybe 6 to 8 weeks and just see what the point updates come out with. Because, now it's gone out to everybody. There will be edge cases that Serif are learning about where there are issues. So depending on how critical it is, but if you really enjoy what you do, like Mike and I, we don't do anything else, and you've got this file, then make a copy of it and have a play around with it in Publisher and see if you can break it. And then at least that way you will know what works and what doesn't work. Pro tip in terms of doing that, which I do all the time, I've introduced Mike to it. Have a notebook, either a physical pen and paper or preferably digital, and just write down every single thing that you test and what the result is. So think of it as like a science notebook. I know in the States, when you're young at school, you have like a science notebook. We never had that concept here. Wish we did. I'd have learnt it much sooner. But you're writing down every experiment that you're making and what the result of that is. And that is gold to go back to and think, right, I know I've tested 12 things and I know there was one that's a potential showstopper. So let me go back to that. And in light of the 8 things I tested after it, is it the showstopper I thought it was? So it's a very personal thing, particularly when you're working with something that somebody else has created and the application they created it in wasn't the one that you're using as well, and you're using a new version. So it's potentially a minefield. Take it slowly, create a derivative of it and test the life out of it first. If I was then going to use it, I think I would use the book feature because it's good enough in terms of, update the footnotes, the end notes, the this notes, the that notes. And I'm only working with one file, so it would make it easier on Publisher 2. So yes, that's what I would do. I wouldn't hang around in version 1 just because I was concerned or whatever. I have opened IDML files in version 2. I've not had a problem with any of them. The worst thing I find if I open an IDML file, particularly from where I've purchased it, and mine would probably be Envato, is that every layer is named IDML. And I'm like, could you not have put footer, main body? So I have to go through and have to rename it. But other than that, I wouldn't suspect there would be major problems, but depending on the importance of the job, test it thoroughly first. What else do we have?
Has Affinity Designer got a hairline? That's a line you see in every magnification with 1 pixel width, but has a logical width 0. It's often used for cut lines with laser cutters.
Not that I have seen, no. I would do that with... You'd probably have to be a starting point style, wouldn't it? And then toggle it on and off. But no, not that I'm aware of for that specific purpose, but it would be amazing if it did. If anybody knows that it does, then let me know, because that's not something that I actually do with it. But no, I've not seen that option to my knowledge.
Can you do a spread across the gutter?
Yes, you can. Yes.
Is it better to place a PDF or just open it when it comes to editing? What's the difference?
You would place a PDF if you want that content in another document. Opening a PDF is opening that file. So if we think about the file that I was using, which was my Enchanted Forest, I know. If I wanted to, if somebody had sent me that, and I'm thinking, you know, I want a different colour on the blue, and I want to add some text to it, and then print it, then I would open that file. I wouldn't place it, because there's nothing for it to go into. I just want to make some changes to that file. And I could open it in Publisher and I could edit it. But if I wanted that map in, and that was based on something I did for real. So our local social group were going away for a weekend away. And it's like herding cats. That's why there's a cat tool. So it is really like herding cats. So I needed a map. I needed a list of the rooms, the room numbers. I needed to tell them when they could book in, when they had to leave, what time breakfast was, the whole thing. But in there, I wanted to put a map. So I had that file, which was my Affinity Publisher file, and I had a PDF from the hotel of a map. And that is the one that I would embed inside it, because I don't particularly want to make, I might want to turn off the fire escapes or something. And that probably isn't a good idea, is it? I might want to turn off the entertainment section. But that PDF is only part of my document. It's not all of my document. So that's when I would do that.
Does the PDF feature work with PDF from Procreate? I have text and images in layers from Procreate.
It would depend on the PDF format that Procreate creates. There are different standards for PDFs. So for example, you saw me create a PDF from Designer and it had editable layers in it. But if I'd created a PDF by scanning a document, I wouldn't be able to edit the images because they were never editable to start with. Basically, a scan is a picture. And there are different standards for PDF. So you would need to go to Procreate and either check the manual to see what it exports, and indeed if there are any options. So it may have an option that says export a PDF flattened or export a PDF editable, in which case you need to go for the editable one. If it doesn't have any options, you've only got PDF export one and then open it up in Publisher and see what it's exporting. And that is one of those examples of something that you do and then make a note of it so future you knows what you need to do with it. You might need to jump through some hoops in Procreate first. But Procreate's vector based, isn't it? So I would expect that its PDF export would work with Publisher. You just have to be aware that there is something which is a flattened PDF which is not editable. So if you have a PDF and you've put time and effort into it and copyrighted artwork of yours, and you don't want anybody to be able to extract that, in those circumstances, you would deliberately create a flattened PDF and they won't be able to extract anything from it. So it depends on Procreate. Let us know how you get on.
Okay. Are the serif workbooks hardcover still relevant?
Oh, that's a good question. They're not available for sale anymore. I don't know if that's because they're working on version 2 or whether they've realised what a terrible idea it was not to give us a PDF version. They were still there on a bookshelf behind. There was a launch video. I think it could have been Ash. And there were these books, and I thought that's interesting because you can't buy them anymore. So now they're collector's items. If you have them already, or you can buy a second-hand copy, are they still relevant? Well, they called them workbooks, but they were quite strange in that what they were was a detailed guide to how one particular thing was made. So I think the idea of them was to take maybe 6 to 8 projects and give you a detailed walkthrough of that project. Now, some people, if that's the project you want to make, that's awesome, because that would be absolutely bang on what you needed. But if you need to extrapolate to make something similar-ish but not identical, a lot of people really struggle with that. It's like, I don't know if that bit's relevant to me or not. So in terms of the features, the icons have changed, some things have moved, but once you've got past that, the actual content of the workbooks themselves, if it's useful to you, is still relevant. It's not that far out of date that you wouldn't be able to use it. Would I buy a workbook now? And I don't know. I bought all 3 workbooks as soon as they were released. And with each one, there was some kind of fiasco. The first one arrived and it was seriously damaged. Now, they didn't package it. They got fulfillment to package it. And I wasn't the only one who had that problem. They basically slung it in like a paper envelope. And it was really badly damaged when it arrived. The second one was the same. And the third one, which was for publisher, was 2 months late. By the time the book arrived, which was February 2020, I think mine arrived in January, but they were still rocking up in February. They brought an update out and it added features that needed tutorials, and there were no tutorials in the book. So unfortunately, even if you could get your hands on them, it's not really what's in them that's the problem, it's what's missing that's the problem. I have no idea if they're going to be working on version 2 of them. But if they do, I would beg them to do them as PDFs as well. I appreciate people will share PDFs, but you're just going to have to trust people to do the right thing at some point, because it's very difficult working with a book like that, and I can imagine it being 10 times worse if you're trying to balance the book and work on an iPad. But the stuff that's in there is not irrelevant. There's a few changes, but nothing fundamental. So if you've got them and you want to work through them, do it. You would be able to follow it.
Right, Linda's come back in, who asked the question about the rulers in Affinity Publisher on the iPad.
Right.
Peter says text frame rulers can be turned on in the preview window menu.
Yeah, I'm assuming that she's meaning the one across the top.
Right.
The big one across the top. A ruler, you can put a ruler on a text window and it zeroes out at the left-hand side of that text window. If you mean a ruler across the whole thing, I can't see an option. But I've got my wrong glasses on for actually working with my iPad. So let me have a look at that this week and I'll give you a definite yes or no.
Yeah, she said she had to disappear and she's just come back. Right, next one. Can you drag individual assets around under the subcategory?
You can certainly drag them in. Do you mean once you've got them in there, can you drag them? Let's have a look. I set my stuff up and I don't move it, but let's have a look. So, assets.
Peter says he's not found that yet. Linda says yes, across the top.
I can drag them about. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Not particularly what I do with it, but yes, you can. You can either drag it to the title, which puts it to the top, or you can drag it to a position which is indicated by the blue bar on the left-hand side. So yes, you can do that. I also have this displaying. I'm menu blind with this menu. I swear I am. Show as list. I always choose show as list. Because if it's not, I can't. I mean, I can tell which with these because they're all colour coded and stuff. But with things that are so narrow like these, I don't want to be squinting at them. I want it to be easy. So I always turn this. In fact, if we try one of their things. Oh, we haven't got one. That's interesting. Right, the MacBytes one. I can't see the end of it with these. And this one's after hours, so I can't see that either. So I always toggle that on to show as list. So if yours looks different, that's why. But in here, I can actually read it. I can see that isn't just saying MacBytes, it's saying MacBytes Live. This one didn't say anything, and I can see that it's Wolfie. So I always do that with it and make it easier. But yes, you can just drag and drop them around. I think the biggest upgrade to that was just being able to drag and drop the stuff in instead of putting it on the canvas and generally fiddling with it. So that to me, and I just like the look of them. I like the fact that I can fold these up if I'm not particularly working with them. Oh, and by the way, I do intend to stick to my lurid orange. I'm not going to that muted maroon. I don't like maroon. I think it was a school uniform when I was a kid that put me right off. Right, what's the next question?
Next question is for remote files. For remote linked files, do you recommend Storing Eagle Library in Dropbox, I had an SSD drive crash and had to relink my images. A nightmare.
I don't like the concept of linked images full stop. I appreciate them if the artwork is a work in progress. But if it's not, then I embed it. I cannot be doing with, I open a file and then I get a message that, I can't find this image, I can't find that image. Life's too short to be going to find images. So if the image is finished, then I would just embed it. I appreciate with things like logos, a logo could update, but I offset the fact I'm probably going to be moving that file around more than I'm going to be changing the logo. And sometimes I need, like, for a lot of documents that I create, like, they're a one-off, like a company report, there could be a legal hold on it. So I can't have it where I'm changing bits beyond it. But your mileage may vary. But I don't like linked at all. I don't think I would link to anything in Eagle. Eagle's fabulous. But Eagle makes it so easy to just drag and drop, and then drag and drop a new one if you want to do that. That is what I would do with it. So I just don't use linked. And remote linked, you want locking up. I'm not even sure why they bothered. It's like, oh, please, come on. Couldn't you have taken the time when you were programming that and make EPUB export? Just saying. But that's what we've got. So I would steer away from linked, full stop.
Okay, next one. Do you think they'll bring out an Android tablet version?
I would love to think they would. I can't see it. The reason I can't see it is there's just, with an iPad, it's one iPad. There's one manufacturer. I know there's a million different sizes, but it's just easier for them. It must be a nightmare to develop for Android because you have all the colours in all the sizes, in all the different varieties, from all the different manufacturers. And I think it would be very difficult from an admin perspective, maybe not from a perspective of actually programming the thing, but from an admin perspective, I'd be surprised if they did. Let's put it like that. I also think with Android tablets, it's like if I want an iPad, I know that I can go anywhere and I can look at the prices and I can think that, the Pro, that's expensive. I'll go for that one. And I might be buying it on price, but ultimately an iPad is an iPad is an iPad. And as you saw from the hardware requirements, it doesn't matter whether it's an iPad mini, how people cope with that. I don't know. But you could have an iPad mini right up to a 12.9-inch iPad. And it's one code base. I can't help thinking on Android it would be more difficult. Time will tell. I wouldn't hold my breath. I don't think it's a priority to them. Again, what we've got to say is EPUB export or Android. And I've got a sneaking suspicion everybody would vote for EPUB. I don't see it myself.
Back to Dale's question about bullets, not quite answered yet. I can get the style panel up for the bullet format, but when I change the bullet to a different character, it loses the gap. And it's in the main body, not the
Let's have a look and see if we
Footnote,
can see it. Let's go in there and see if we can see it. Right, so we're talking text, are we? What have we got on here? Oh, good grief, some of these are bad. Right, we've got text. Have we got a page where we can see this? Some text. Right. So we want to put a bullet point in there, which I'm assuming we have a style in here somewhere. Oh, actually, we might not. We might not have a bullet style in here, unless it's off base. Ah, there we go. Right, so we have a bullet, and we've got some text. Right, what was the next step, mate? Get the bullet format when you change the bullet to a different character.
It loses the gap.
Right, so can we do that? Right. So how are you going about changing the bullet style? Because there's about 9 different ways to do that, isn't it? So Dale, put in, how are you going about doing that? Are we editing the format in here? And then it's somewhere in, I don't think I've ever done this, So bullet 2, no, that's the next style, isn't it? Tell me exactly where you're changing it and I'll see if there is a code next to it that I can do. Where's my bullets? Bullets and numbering. Right. Because what I'm thinking in here is the gap is represented by that blue symbol. So let's draw around that. In fact, no, let's do that.
It says editing format.
Well, I would do it with the style. And what we're looking at here is how the bullet is defined. So you see there is a drop down and there's a dot, dot, dot. You have the drop down, which you can choose different bullets from. In between that, you have the gap, and the gap is represented by the symbol. So you're changing it, and what's happening is that blue symbol is disappearing. And you need to find a way that that blue symbol is there. And I think you'll find that that is a tab. So if we go up there and we insert that, it's a tab character. So you've seen me add a tab character. You can delete them too. So if I delete that one, then if you look at the text at the bottom where it says some text, you can see now I've not got a gap. I haven't changed the bullet point, but I could have done. But what's missing is in here, you need to add the tab back. So let's go and change that bullet. Let's get rid of it totally. And choose a totally different looking bullet, like the triangle. And you can see we've got the triangle, we've got the bullet, but we've not got the gap. And the gap is the tab. So you put a tab placeholder in, and then you've got that. So if I was working with bullets, I'd make a dedicated bullet style or edit the the default bullet style. But if you do it in here, you get complete control over the spacing, the shape, the position, the lot. So hopefully that will explain what's going on and how to fix it. Right, let's go back into there. What we got now?
Stephen Lowry, who accidentally came across this whilst looking for a Grand Prix update.
Accidentally? Grand Prix?
He's so glad he did. But that wasn't the question. I'm just saying that as an aside. I can use Cambria in Publisher on Mac OS, but not on the iPad. Cannot work out why.
There is an option in the iPad version to load fonts. It is in the preferences. And she said, going to have a quick look. Down in those preferences, is it in the preferences? Yeah, fonts. So what I do with my fonts is I keep them in the cloud. So if you want to see like a practical example of how I work with that, let's come out of there and let's have a look at Dropbox. And this is how I organise it. So that's my entire Dropbox. I've already explained what the folders are. In my application support folder, I have Designer, Photo and Publisher. As I said, I don't particularly work on an iPad. I demonstrate on an iPad. I don't particularly work on it, in which case I don't particularly need my fonts. If I did, it would probably be Designer that I did it with, but I'll do it in Publisher and you'll see. So I go into here and my top things here, let's get rid of these. Right, I do have an archive in there, but they're just files. So we'll just shove the files out of the way. I have a templates folder at the top, which has the underscores. The underscores force it to the top because if I go in there and I'm looking for my templates, I want them to be at the top. The second thing I have is then assets, and that's got one underscore. If I was concerned about my fonts, I would be making a fonts folder. And just like I have my templates all organised and my assets, I haven't actually exported them from here, but they are probably in Designer. And there's my assets. So there are all my AF assets and stuff that I've retired as well. So I create a folder like that in Publisher for my fonts. I would then go and find my fonts, which are, and what I'm doing here is if we look in the middle, Home, Library, Computer. You only see Library if you hold the Option key down. Go to the Library, and my fonts are in there. And these fonts are custom fonts that I use. So all my MacBite stuff's in here. The weird stuff like Cartoon Shout, that one, which is one of our MacBite's fonts. So that, for example, this one would not be there on my iPad. So I would copy that, I would go up to here and I would paste it. And the reason I'm doing that is there's no way I'm getting access to my fonts folder, my real system fonts folder, from an iPad. So, and I also, this is like a backup to me. So that's a font that I would want on my iPad. And then all I need to do on my iPad is from the home screen of Affinity Publisher, tap the preferences, which is in the lower left-hand corner. I would show you, but it's going to go mental. I will be doing a demo of the iPad version, just not today, because we've broken the software, haven't we? We broke our mirroring software. We didn't break it, they did. So down to the preferences in the lower left-hand corner, brings it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sixth option is fonts. You've got 2 buttons there. You've got a bin, which is useless because there's nothing installed, and you have a cloud icon. If you tap on the cloud icon, wonder actually if we can do this. Shall we try it just for a giggle? Go on, let's have a laugh. If this all breaks, I'm blaming Stephen. Right, let's see if this works. Let's mirror that. Oh, Mohawk is there twice now. There's my iPad. There's my software. Right, let's go into the publisher. Down to the preferences. Over to fonts. 2 buttons. Bin, cloud. Tap on the cloud. That's my iCloud. I know Affinity Designer doesn't have that icon, and so do you. And my Affinity Publisher folder's vanished because it thinks it's a beta. Don't ask. This is why I don't use iCloud. So I would go to Dropbox. That's exactly what you've just seen. There's my application support. There is my Affinity Publisher. There is my fonts folder. There is my font. So if I tap my font and say open, it will download my font, and my font is now available. Simple as that. And then you just choose that font. You would tap done. You would go into it. So I've got a new file. That will do nicely. Let me get a text something or other. Where am I looking? Did I mention my glasses? Oh, good grief. It doesn't matter. Oh, no, now I want the other one. Right, there's that. I need to choose where it says Arial. Do we have my font? It was a B, wasn't it? There we go. And let's put in MacBytes. It might be huge, but it's the right font. Right, let's get rid of that. And there it is. Scoot that down. So that is how you get fonts on the iPad version. It's disappeared from the screen. At what point did it disappear from the screen, Mike? Tell me that it was there at some point.
Yeah.
Well, it's disappeared now. Did I mention it was broken? I think that was when I zoomed in. Hopefully you saw that. Let me try doing it again. I won't do the whole thing. I'll just stop the share and then reshare it, and you should actually see the MacBytes thing. I do wish Apple... I think I'll blame Apple. I do wish Apple wouldn't break things. There we go. There is MacBytes in the right font. There. So let's move that down. Oh, never mind. You can see it. There you go. It's the right font. It could be the way the mirroring's working, but you can see that. So hopefully you saw that. I'll tell you what, I'm going to come out. Darn thing. Let's stop the share again. Crying out loud. Right, there we are. I have no idea how much of that you saw.
Most of it.
Good. Hopefully you got that. The reason I would keep the fonts in Dropbox is purely practical. It gives you a perfect backup. As soon as you install a font on your Mac that's a custom font that you want to use, just put a copy in the font folder. I've put the font folder underneath the app folder. But I could, if that font, I wanted it available, instead of having 3 copies of it, I could create a serif Affinity Suite folder higher up and put the fonts in there. But that's all you need to do with it. So hopefully that answered that question. Let me know if it did. And how did the Grand Prix end up? There we go. And how are we doing with that bullet point? Is that sorted now?
Yeah, worked perfectly.
Oh, good. Right. Where we go? What's next?
Right. What is next is... oh, where's it gone? There it is. If you later choose to use it yourself to create commercial content, do you have to have a commercial license?
It doesn't mention that. It just says that you can use it It doesn't go into any detail other than if somebody else is creating commercial content. So if you are concerned about that, I would get in touch with Serif and find out. It doesn't actually say, which I would assume it would, but I don't know.
There is a little gift for you from Dale.
Oh, thank you, Dale. I still can't see the chat, but thank you.
Thanks for the assist, he says.
You're very welcome.
Next one. Will you be doing live features live for designer and photo?
I think it's got to be done, hasn't it? I don't know when, but yes. Yes. Let's say yes. There you go.
Okay. If you have duplicated footnotes on the same page, can you reference the same from two? Can you reference the same footnote from two or more places within the page?
That also is an excellent question. I have no idea. I've not tried it. I had enough trouble trying to get the numbers right. I would say from my look at it so far, I don't see a way for that. There's no cross-referencing. So you also can't say, continued on page 4 and have that update. Well, you can. It's a dirty hack. I'll do a video on that if you want. But in terms of referencing the same thing, I don't quite see how that would be done. There may be a way, but I don't see it in the dialog box as a distinct option at the moment. But yeah, they've rolled this out. I think there's scope for improvement over the next few months. Let's see how that goes. But I certainly didn't find that option, no, unfortunately.
Okay, I'm trying to put a couple of extra questions in. If you add lots of text prior to the footnote you've created, will the footnote move to the next page? What if there are footnotes on that page too? Will it adjust numbering accordingly?
It will automatically readjust the numbering, yes. If the footnote will be on the page where the number is. So the footnote will move if the number moves. So you saw me put lots and lots of text in, and then the ones that were on page 1, some of them moved to page 2 and some on 2 moved to 3. So that's why it's important that you make your mind up whether you want the footnotes outside of the text frame. I mean, I see them outside the text frame, but a lot of that is going to be manually typeset. We're trying to automate a layout here. I can see that there's two things competing with one another. So I foresee there would be some fun and games with this. I was expecting it to be a little bit more automated than it actually is. It's fairly straightforward and automated enough if it's a standard document. But if you're doing this in a company report and you're dancing around 15 photos, and then you want a footnote attached to a photo, I can see all kinds of problems occurring. So at the moment, it will move. The footnote will move. The footnote will be on the page that has the reference. Now, I do see what you're saying, that if the footnote is quite long, yes, it could disappear off the end. I think you would have to manually set that to be just a smaller font or something. I will have a play and find out.
What was the purpose of giving permission to Apple when using the style picker?
Right, the style picker is going to pick up the format of a shape or text. The way Apple have gone, they drive me insane. If you install a new operating system or you're setting up a new computer, you literally can get, it's like the old pop-up viruses, isn't it? I can literally get 18 pop-ups. And what they're saying is it needs permission to record the screen. Now, Affinity is not recording the screen. It's not. What it wants to do is be able to click in a certain place and pick up that colour. But the way Apple works, Affinity are not allowed to do that without asking for permission first. And if you deny permission, that feature inside Publisher will never work. So I did give it permission. It's a little bit random when it comes up because I've already done this over the last 2 days, but today was the first time it asked me. It had already asked me in Designer. So it's an Apple security issue. What you're saying is, by saying yes, is I trust Serif Affinity that they're not recording my screen, but that's what Apple call it. Really, I think Apple are incorrect here. What their argument would be is we don't know why people want to do that, but the mechanism is screen recording, And that's what we have to ask permission for. So it asked me for permission because it's an OS level issue. So when I install Camtasia, when I install Snagit, when I install anything that records the screen, I see the same message. You've also saw other applications in there that just display a ruler on the screen, and I have to give them permission. It's an Apple thing. I guess it's good that it's there in case you've installed a rogue app, but it does mean for proper apps like these, you would need to grant permission to all three of them if you're using them on Mac. But you only have to do it once. Unless it throws all its toys out the pram and it asks you to do it again, which sometimes Camtasia and Snagit do. But I've never seen Publisher, Designer or Photo ask me more than once. There's no harm in giving it permission as long as it's... I mean, if you've downloaded a dodgy copy because you don't want to pay for the license, then all bets are off. But if you've downloaded the version from them, I think it's safe to assume that you can trust them and you can say yes to that. So hopefully that will explain that.
Okay, drag and drop in Eagle. Just to verify, I'm actually moving the file into Eagle. It's not a duplicate file, is it?
Yes, it is. It's a duplicate file. The way Eagle works, Eagle is an asset management app in the ilk of Bridge, Adobe Bridge. But the difference between them is Adobe Bridge can either have a database of your images or it can refer to them where they are. So I can say to Bridge, open up and show me all the files in this folder, and Bridge will do that. Eagle will not. Eagle needs the graphics imported. It depends how you add them as to whether they are a duplicate or the original. But most of the time, if you drag and drop, the images that are in Eagle are an exact copy of the images that you have elsewhere. But it does not move them. Now, there is an exception to that, which is there is a way to import with what's called a watched folder. So any files that you put in folder X will be imported into database X, and there will not be two copies. It won't leave them in this watched folder. It will import them and it will delete them from the watched folder. But your precise question was drag and drop. And if you drag and drop from folder A into Eagle, your images will then be in Eagle and in folder A. They will be two separate versions of it. If you rename it in folder A, that will not be renamed in Eagle. If you rename it in Eagle, it will not be renamed in folder A. So drag and drop, it's a copy.
How can you merge two different documents, two different Excel files with one Affinity document?
That's no problem at all. When you link it, let's show you. That won't take long. No, we don't want the questions again. We've already done the questions. Right, when you come to data merge, so that used to be in the document. No, it's not. It's window data merge. Right, you have an option down here to go and find the file. I don't think I've got an Excel file on this computer because there's bad words said when I do an Excel thing, isn't there? But you would add a data source. You can add multiple data sources. It's as simple as that. So you add the first one by clicking that button, and then when it's in there, you would click that button again and you add the next one. And you can keep going if you like. So it's as simple as clicking that button multiple times rather than just the once. Now, contrast that with Word, where you have one form letter and you have one data source. In here, you have one document, but multiple data sources using the Add Data Merge Source button at the bottom. What else do we have?
Do you have a tutorial on your computer folder organization tips and suggestions?
No, I've discussed it in After Hours before. I haven't got a separate video on it, but if you would like a separate video on it, say so and we'll add it to the list.
Anyone having issues with stock not giving any search results? I'm on Windows 10. It does it on all three apps. I don't get this on Affinity 1.10.5.
Right, I'm not seeing that. There was a permission issue, so that warning that you saw flash up, you need to sort out the copyright issue on this, was what it said. It hasn't opened that behind something, has it? because at that point it's waiting for input from you. If it's opened that dialog box but hidden it, it won't return any results until you click OK. That's the only thing I can think of. It's working for me on all 3 apps.
And the last question.
Oh, last question. Should we have a drum roll?
Which I think you covered earlier. Any reliable info on whether EPUB export is finally coming to Publisher? It's been asked for since 2018.
I feel your pain. It's discussed a lot, but Affinity have never said anything about it. When the beta first came out, I was shocked. I expected it to be there from the beta, which was 2018. And it was in beta for 10 months, and they never did add it. And I'm wondering if their intention was that it was for printed documents and that was it. But you can't help the comparisons between Publisher and InDesign. And I know InDesign is 23 years old. So there's a lot of years of development in it. I don't know. It's clearly not a priority to them. If it was a priority, it'd be there by now. But do I see it coming soon? I don't, actually. I must admit, I don't. I think it's really unfortunate, but it clearly just isn't a priority. There was talk, and this was in development, you'll remember this, Mike, of Affinity Asset Management app. So we were colloquially calling it Affinity Bridge. I swear that was 3 years ago, and that's never seen the light of day since either. So I don't know. I'm guessing they're going to deal with all the issues that are arising from this launch and then have a break over Christmas. And then hopefully maybe they'll let us know what their plans are in the new year, what their priorities are for features, or maybe not. I don't know. So good one to end on. I wish it had that myself. There are ways to work around it, but it's not ideal. To be honest, there are a million dirty hacks, but they're never ideal. You need a feature that's built in, because then if it doesn't do what you want, you can say to them, okay, so it does this, but I actually need it to do that. Whereas a dirty hack, you can build it and then something they do and it breaks tomorrow. So I'm put off unless it's desperate. And I have other ways that I can deal with EPUBs, but it's getting annoying. I'll give you that. It is getting annoying. But no is the answer to that one. I do not have any reliable info from anywhere else. So, last call for questions before we head into the 3rd hour, and people are horrified when they see the length of the video. But we do that every time, because we can. Just wanted to make sure that you got all your stuff answered. So, do we have any more final questions, Mike, or is that it? Okay, now, what I need next is, did you put me the list of people I need to say thank you to?
Yes.
Right, where's that?
All over the place.
Oh, good grief.
I can read them out to you.
Read them out, that's a better idea.
Patricia.
Thank you, Patricia.
Mitchell Allen.
Thank you, Mitchell.
And Dale.
And Dale, much appreciated, Dale. Thank you very much. I hope you found it useful. I am going to say here, let's move on to that one. So I'm going to say thank you again. Thank you for being with me. I know it's been a long session. I really appreciate you taking the time and being with us. What have we got coming up? Well, we announced yesterday 13 Squared. That caused uproar, didn't it? It was meant to be enigmatic and you had to work it out. 13 Squared, 13 times 13 is 169. It took people quite a while, but congratulations to Peter Williamson, who worked it out, and Carol Little, who knew this first. Carol was the first one to know that season 2 of MacBites After Hours starts on Friday night at 9 o'clock. If you have never attended an After Hours, it's a quirky look at tech. We have a podcast called MacBites. It's been around since 2007, and we talk about all things Mac. We took it online as a video show in 2014. It's our birthday on Wednesday, 16th of November 2018 it was. We've been on hiatus. We are now back for season 2. So what we do is there's demonstrations of quirky little apps, and then we probably work up to a bigger demo at the end. I have no idea what we're covering on Friday. We could just turn up and eat sweets, couldn't we? Really, that would be grand. But it's not all Mac stuff. Sometimes there's Windows stuff and sometimes there's iOS stuff. But that is what we are doing. That's what we're doing on Friday.
Kimmy didn't know. Kimmy didn't know. Kimmy's just said, OMG, I'm so very happy.
Well, if you'd been in Slack, you would have got a DM from me about 4 weeks ago. But I figured you were resting, so you need to see that DM. And everyone was giddy last night in Slack. Also on Twitter, and did I send an email yet? I don't think I did,
No,
did I?
not yet.
I'm working up to the email, obviously, working up to it. But anyway, I think if you're a big fan of After Hours and you didn't know, and then that's announced, that's a good way to learn about it, Kim, be honest. That is a really good way to learn about it. I need to know how Jonathan found out. We'll find out. But yes, I will be back on Friday, as I say. Yes, in answer to the question that I've already answered, which is, will I do the same as I've done today for Photo and Designer? Yes, I will. I just don't have dates for that yet. But I think you've got enough to look at with Publisher. So watch this space, subscribe to the channel, sign up for the newsletter, and you will find out. So finally, I will say thank you for being with us. Much appreciated it. I think I've got 2 minutes before we hit the 3-hour mark and people cry on YouTube. So we'll aim to get out under 3 hours. We said 2, but there were so many questions. And anyway, I love answering the questions and helping you guys. Okay, so if there are no more questions, no more questions?
No
more questions.
Kim's lost Slack in her computer transfer.
Oh no! Michael sends you an invitation.
We'll sort you out.
We'll
Kim.
sort you out,
We'll
Kim.
sort you out, Kim.
Right. In that case, I will say thank you very much for being with us. And it is. It's that long since we've done this. What's my sign out? I usually say good night, don't I?
It's goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
And we will both see you next time. Oh, stay safe, guys. That's it. Stay safe, guys.